Good evening, dear companions. Tonight, we shall embark upon a tranquil and unhurried exploration into the depths of ancient Greek mythology and the serene annals of legendary history. As the daylight wanes, we invite you to soften the illumination around you. Cocoon yourselves in the comforting embrace of a blanket, and permit the clamor and exigencies of the day to dissipate into the ether. At the world's furthest occidental frontier, precisely where the sun descends to embrace the earth at the culmination of each day, there flourishes a botanical marvel unparalleled in its splendor. One might envision it standing in solitary grandeur upon a verdant knoll, its boughs laden with succulent fruits that radiate an ethereal luminescence, akin to captured solar brilliance. Yet, this magnificent arboreal specimen is not without companionship. Encircled about its venerable trunk, with an immobility as profound as ancient stone, reposes Ladon, a formidable dragon whose 100 vigilant eyes never succumb to slumber, whose very respiration has served as a silent chronometer for the passage of millennia. Indeed, Ladon deviates significantly from the archetypal, avaricious, and fiery dragons depicted in later narratives. He embodies a more subdued, more primordial essence. His scales gleam with a muted, burnished bronze luster, meticulously polished by the incessant caress of countless years of prevailing winds and inclement weather. Each of his 100 ocular orbs operates with remarkable autonomy, orchestrating a gentle, mesmerizing tableau, reminiscent of stars sequentially materializing and receding in a stately cosmic ballet across the nocturnal expanse. Some of these vigilant eyes meticulously scan the distant horizon. Others remain fixed upon the resplendent golden fruit suspended above, while still others appear to cast their gaze inward, as if engrossed in cogitations too profound for the limited comprehension of mortal beings. The sacred tree he diligently guards is the cherished possession of Hera, the august queen of the Olympian deities, and its fabled golden apples are reputed to bestow the coveted gift of eternal life upon those fortunate enough to partake of them. Nevertheless, one will not observe Ladon restlessly patrolling his domain or unleashing torrents of fiery breath upon audacious interlopers. Instead, he has assimilated himself into a timeless rhythm, as ancient and enduring as the very earth itself. His colossal physique rhythmically ascends and descends with each measured breath, emitting a sound evocative of distant ocean swells. When the zephyr gently rustles through the verdant foliage above, he occasionally elevates his majestic head ever so slightly, as if heeding the soft, familiar whisper of a venerable confidant. What profound reflections might occupy the consciousness of a dragon during the protracted, silent epochs of eternity? Perhaps he recollects the momentous day Hera first conveyed him to this hallowed sanctuary, recalling how she addressed him, not as a mere servitor, but as a revered custodian of something inestimably precious. The golden apples transcended their identity as mere fruit. They epitomized hope itself, embodying the solemn promise that certain elements within this terrestrial realm possessed the capacity for everlasting persistence. And Ladon, with his innate wisdom, comprehended that his designated function was not to exhibit ferocity or inspire terror, but rather to embody an unwavering presence, an indomitable constancy, an unflappable steadfastness. The meticulously cultivated garden encircling the tree is assiduously maintained by the Hesperides, the enchanting evening nymphs whose melodious voices harmonize exquisitely with the resonant cadence of Ladon's breathing, collectively weaving a timeless lullaby that has reverberated throughout this sacred precinct since the dawn of creation. They traverse the garden with an effortless grace, akin to dancers, diligently irrigating the roots, pruning the branches, and meticulously gathering fallen leaves. Occasionally, they pause in their labors to gently caress Ladon's immense, warm scales, eliciting from him a deep, contented rumble, a sound reminiscent of distant thunder reverberating on a serene summer evening. One might naturally ponder whether Ladon ever experiences the pangs of solitude during his perpetual vigil. However, the sensation of loneliness necessitates a distinct perception of temporal progression. For Ladon, the passage of time unfolds in a fundamentally distinct manner. Each day seamlessly merges into the next, much like water seeking its natural equilibrium. The sun ascends, casting elongated golden shafts of light through the labyrinthine branches of the apple tree. It then ascends to its zenith, suffusing his bronze scales with warmth until they become almost incandescent to the touch. Subsequently, it descends, painting the vast celestial canvas in resplendent hues of rose and amber, colors that perfectly echo the radiant fruit he diligently safeguards. And throughout this cyclical journey, Ladon maintains his unwavering watch with patient eyes, his steadfast presence as immutable as the inexorable progression of the seasons. The golden apples themselves appear to pulsate with an inherent, gentle luminescence, particularly during the ethereal hours preceding dawn. If one were afforded the opportunity to observe them at close proximity, it would become apparent that they are not perfectly spherical, like ordinary produce. Rather, they are subtly elongated, possessing a flawless epidermis that exhibits no blemishes, no discernible indications of age or deterioration. When agitated by the wind, they produce a delicate melodious chime as they softly collide, a sound evocative of distant bells. Ladon has been privy to this celestial music for such an extensive duration that it has become intrinsically interwoven with the rhythm of his own heartbeat, an integral component of his respiration, and an inseparable element of his very dreams. Indeed, even dragons are susceptible to the realm of dreams. In his slumber, Ladon occasionally experiences prophetic visions of valiant heroes who will inevitably seek the coveted apples. These are not the brutal brigands depicted in some exaggerated tales, but rather individuals propelled by profound affection, by desperate exigency, by the intrinsically human imperative to cling tenaciously to that which holds paramount significance. He discerns their visages long before their physical arrival, recognizing their distinctive footsteps upon the ancient path that leads to his hallowed garden. And although his fundamental obligation is to safeguard the precious apples, he experiences a nascent sensation akin to compassion for these intrepid seekers, comprehending their profound yearning for permanence in a world where all things are destined to eventually fade. The most renowned of these extraordinary visitors was Heracles, the celebrated hero whose formidable physical prowess was rivaled only by the profound turbulence of his inner spirit. When Heracles finally reached the sacred garden, his form covered in the dust of his arduous odyssey, Ladon evinced no astonishment. He had, in fact, been anticipating this precise moment for countless years. The hero approached with deliberate steps, not with the arrogant bravado one might anticipate, but rather with the meticulous reverence characteristic of an individual who profoundly respects hallowed ground. Heracles did not engage Ladon in combat, notwithstanding the divergent accounts propagated by some narratives. Instead, he chose to repose beneath the majestic tree for 3 days and 3 nights, engaging in hushed discourse with the ancient dragon, recounting his monumental labors, his profound regrets, and his fervent hope that by successfully executing these seemingly insurmountable tasks, he might ultimately attain a measure of inner tranquility. Ladon listened intently with his 100 perceptive eyes, and within those profound depths, Heracles perceived not the unthinking voracity of a savage beast, but rather the profound weariness of an immortal soul burdened by an eternal obligation. On the 3rd night, as the moon ascended to its celestial zenith, Ladon performed an unprecedented act. He simultaneously closed all 100 of his eyes and succumbed to a deep, complete slumber, thereby permitting Heracles to acquire the apples he so desperately required. This was neither an act of capitulation nor a stratagem of deceit. It was, rather, an act of profound recognition, one guardian acknowledging the inherent nobility of another, one eternal duty honoring the profound significance of another. As Heracles departed, he gently placed his hand upon Ladon's colossal head, a gesture of profound gratitude that the dragon cherishes and carries with him still. However, that momentous event transpired eons ago. Heracles successfully completed his formidable labors and ultimately discovered his coveted peace. The resplendent golden apples were duly returned to their sacred arboreal sanctuary, and Ladon resumed his perpetual vigil. The world beyond the garden underwent myriad transformations, both subtle and cataclysmic. Empires ascended to prominence and subsequently crumbled into dust. Novel deities garnered fervent adherents, while ancient ones gradually receded into hushed whispers, and mortal beings devised innovative methodologies to quantify time, distance, and intrinsic worth. None of these external vicissitudes impinged upon the serene garden where Ladon steadfastly maintains his eternal watch. Here, the immutable rhythm persists. The ethereal dawn light filters through the golden leaves, the soft, harmonious singing of the Hesperides as they meticulously tend their timeless garden. The gentle whisper of the wind as it courses through the immortal branches, and perpetually the steady, rhythmic respiration of the dragon who presides over this hallowed domain. His 100 eyes perpetually reflect the ever-shifting light. His unwavering presence serves as an enduring testament that certain entities persevere not through brute force or cunning artifice, but through the simple, profound choice to remain steadfastly devoted to that which holds ultimate significance. If one were afforded the privilege of visiting Ladon today, one would discover him precisely as he has always been, gracefully coiled around the base of the golden tree, his scales radiating the warmth absorbed from the sun, his eyes observing the world with patient sagacity. He might elevate his magnificent head slightly as you approach, not as a menacing gesture, but rather as an act of solemn greeting, recognizing within you another soul, another seeker of permanence in a world perpetually defined by flux. And if one were to remain profoundly quiet, profoundly still, one might discern within his rhythmic breathing the resonant echo of all narratives yet to be unveiled. All the quiet guardians who diligently watch over those precious elements we simply cannot bear to relinquish. What other patient sentinels might we unearth within the gentle, forgotten enclaves of ancient Greece? What other souls discovered profound meaning not in audacious exploits, but in the unwavering, steady rhythms of daily devotion. Long before illustrious heroes such as Heracles graced the earth, before grand temples majestically rose upon sun-drenched hilltops and gleaming marble columns adorned the Mediterranean landscape, the nascent Greeks made a discovery that would irrevocably transform the entire world. They learned to persuade the earth to yield its bountiful treasures, not through arduous mining or precarious hunting, but through the patient, symbiotic partnership between diligent human hands and dormant seeds. This, then, is the compelling narrative of those unsung pioneers, the inaugural farmers who ingeniously transmuted wild grasses into golden wheat, who transformed disparate, scattered tribes into cohesive, settled communities, who imparted to humanity the profound wisdom of trusting in the promise of tomorrow's harvest. Envision the pristine landscape of ancient Greece as it existed 8 millennia ago. Undulating hills cloaked in a profusion of wild herbs that suffused the air with their intoxicating fragrance with every passing breeze. Majestic oak groves, where acorns descended in such abundance each autumn that they resembled a torrential rain. Verdant meadows interspersed with wild barley and wheat, flourishing wherever the capricious wind had dispersed the genetic legacy of their progenitors. The indigenous peoples who inhabited this region at that remote juncture were nomadic, meticulously tracking migratory game animals through the changing seasons, diligently gathering wild berries and nuts, perpetually existing at the capricious mercy of nature's unpredictable whims. However, in a secluded valley situated not far from the future site of what would one day become the illustrious city of Athens, a woman whose name has been irretrievably lost to the annals of history made a profound observation that fundamentally altered everything. She astutely noticed that wherever their nomadic tribe had established temporary encampments and subsequently departed, leaving behind the detritus of their communal meals, scattered grains, discarded fruit seeds, and vegetable remnants, new, vigorous plants invariably emerged and flourished in the subsequent growing season. This phenomenon was not attributable to sorcery, although it must have initially appeared utterly miraculous. It was, rather, the Earth's inherent responsiveness to human collaboration, marking the nascent genesis of agriculture's ancient dialogue between deliberate intention and fervent hope. Her appellation might well have been Melissa, a name derived from the ancient Greek word for bee, for she exhibited an innate inclination towards the industrious tasks of gathering and meticulous storage, much like her diligent insect namesake. Each morning, she would embark upon her daily peregrinations through the specific areas where her people had established their encampments in preceding years, diligently scrutinizing the resilient volunteer plants that had spontaneously germinated there. She progressively acquired the sagacity to identify the robust stalks that yielded the most abundant grain, the intricate vines that bore the sweetest and most succulent fruit, and the subterranean roots that possessed the greatest capacity to store vital nourishment throughout the austere winter months. Through the lean winter months. Melissa's groundbreaking realization unfolded not as a spectacular, abrupt event, nor was it marked by an epiphany of sudden insight or an otherworldly disclosure. Rather, her profound understanding emerged from countless meticulous observations, hushed trials, and unwavering anticipation. She systematically started disseminating seeds in specific locales she intended to revisit. With diligence, she prepared modest sections of terrain, meticulously eliminating undesirable vegetation and obstructing rocks to provide ample space for her selected flora to flourish. She honed her ability to interpret the nuanced indicators that signaled the optimal readiness of the earth for sowing, the critical need for hydration in nascent sprouts, and the opportune moment for gathering the ripened cereal. Her tribal companions observed her persistent endeavors with a blend of intrigued wonder and profound apprehension. They posed logical inquiries. What was the rationale behind dedicating such extensive periods to nurturing botanical life in a fixed location when the untamed environment already offered a complete provision for their sustenance? Why voluntarily restrict oneself to a solitary valley when the very essence of liberty resided in pursuing migratory animal populations wherever their journeys might lead? Yet Melissa had perceived a profound truth that remained elusive to them. She had envisioned the genuine prospect of copious yields, of enduring stability, and of societies capable of flourishing far beyond the demographic limitations imposed by a subsistence lifestyle, reliant on foraging and hunting. Her initial significant triumph materialized with emmer wheat, an archaic cereal that proliferated naturally across the entire geographical expanse. In stark contrast to contemporary wheat, which boasts plump, effortlessly collected kernels, emmer presented a resilient and intractable nature. Its individual grains adhered tenaciously to their protective husks, necessitating meticulous preparation to render them palatable. Nevertheless, it possessed remarkable robustness, capable of enduring in infertile ground and unpredictable climatic conditions. Melissa assimilated its inherent cycles, ascertaining its predilection for elevated, well-drained slopes and cultivation during the autumnal season. She diligently preserved the most superior seeds from every yield, progressively fostering more vigorous and fertile varieties. The agricultural labor proved to be far more arduous than anyone had initially conceived. Preparing the land involved interminable periods utilizing rudimentary implements, extracting stubborn tree stumps, relocating cumbersome rocks, and fracturing compacted soil. Sowing seeds demanded scrupulous consideration of atmospheric phenomena, ground composition, and the precise scheduling that delineated the boundary between prolific success and utter collapse. Weeding constituted a perpetual obligation throughout the cultivation period, a deliberate, systematic endeavor focused on safeguarding the selected crops while eradicating rival vegetation. Furthermore, the harvest presented its unique set of difficulties, severing the cereal stalks manually, subsequently threshing to dislodge the kernels from their stems, and finally winnowing to purge the unwanted husks and detritus. Nevertheless, the eventual recompenses proved truly remarkable. Unprecedented in recorded human history, Melissa's community possessed an abundance of provisions, quantities exceeding their consumption capacity within a single cycle of seasons. They mastered the technique of safeguarding grain within hermetically sealed ceramic containers, thereby shielding it from dampness and vermin. They ascertained that particular foodstuffs could be desiccated, subjected to fermentation, or otherwise conserved through methods that prolonged their utility significantly beyond the active cultivation period. The winter months, historically a phase characterized by dearth and apprehension, were transformed into simply another segment of the year to be navigated with satiated appetites and tranquil dispositions. As intelligence of these accomplishments disseminated, neighboring communities commenced their own trials with agricultural practices. Each distinct collective ingeniously customized the fundamental tenets, to suit their specific geographical surroundings and requirements. Along littoral zones, inhabitants acquired the expertise to cultivate produce, flourishing in granular earth and saline atmospheres. Within alpine territories, they engineered tiered fields, effectively leveraging precipitous inclines and periodic precipitation. Adjacent to flowing waterways and rivulets, they constructed sophisticated irrigation apparatuses that conveyed life-giving moisture to previously barren tracts of land. The societal transformations engendered by the advent of agriculture proved no less monumental than the innovations in technology. When human populations were relieved of the perpetual necessity to migrate in pursuit of sustenance, they were empowered to dedicate their efforts and resources towards constructing enduring habitations. Substantial homes superseded ephemeral shelters, evolving into focal points of domestic existence and secure repositories for gathered belongings. Settlements expanded progressively around the most fertile agricultural lands, thereby fostering communities of sufficient scale to sustain a diverse array of specialized artisans. Ceramists fabricating containers for storage, implement manufacturers forging enhanced plows and harvesting blades, and textile workers fashioning garments from botanical filaments. Offspring brought into existence within these nascent agrarian societies cultivated a fundamentally distinct rapport with temporality and locality compared to their peripatetic forebears. They assimilated the deliberate cycles inherent in cultivation. The hushed, dormant period of winter when embryonic seeds reposed beneath congealed earth. The invigorating anticipation of vernal sowing. The vigilant surveillance throughout summer as burgeoning crops progressed towards ripeness, and the triumphant weariness accompanying the collection of the bounty. They acquired what could be termed an inherent agricultural sagacity, a profound comprehension of meteorological phenomena, diverse edaphic compositions, botanical afflictions, and the myriad additional variables that collectively dictate prosperity or adversity in husbandry. Concurrently with the advancement of agriculture, spiritual customs underwent a significant transformation. As human beings endeavored to comprehend and exert influence over the enigmatic powers dictating the fate of their cultivations, they progressively discerned sacredness within the rhythmic transitions of the seasons. This led to the establishment of elaborate ceremonies designed to secure propitious climatic conditions, productive ground, and copious yields. Demeter, revered as the patroness of cereals and cultivation, ascended to prominence as one of the most revered divinities within the Hellenic pantheon, embodying not merely the generous provisions of the terrestrial realm, but also the hallowed collaboration between human endeavor and the inherent dynamics of the natural world. The implements wielded by these pioneering cultivators were unpretentious, yet remarkably efficacious. Wooden plows, propelled by the formidable strength of oxen, fragmented the earth with greater efficacy than manual instruments could achieve in isolation. Bronze sickles facilitated a swifter and more comprehensive collection of crops. Earthenware receptacles furnished dependable containment for propagating seeds and harvested cereals. Stone querns pulverized grain into flour, which could then be transformed into baked bread, yielding a foodstuff that was conveniently transportable, highly nourishing, and durable over extended periods. Each of these ingenious contrivances symbolized epochs of trial and systematic improvement, as agriculturalists progressively devised superior methodologies for engaging with the terrain. Yet arguably the most crucial implement cultivated by these nascent agriculturalists was the very virtue of endurance. in stark contrast to the pursuit of game, which could yield instantaneous outcomes for those possessing sufficient skill and fortune. Cultivation demanded an unwavering conviction in deferred recompense. Grains sown in the verdant expanse of spring might not be gathered until the crimson hues of autumn. Fecund, fruit-bearing arboreal specimens could abstain from yielding their bounty for numerous years subsequent to their initial planting. Enhancements to the earth's fertility might necessitate several decades to manifest their complete efficacy. This pervasive foresight reshaped not merely the means by which humanity sustained itself, but also the fundamental perception of its position within the cosmic order. By the epoch when the venerable Hellenic civilization attained its zenith, the progeny of these inaugural cultivators had established an intricate agrarian framework capable of sustaining populations numbering in the millions. They had innovated sophisticated methods of crop rotation that perpetuated the vitality of the soil, implemented discerning programs of selective propagation that enhanced both flora and fauna, and forged expansive commercial arteries that disseminated excess provisions throughout the Mediterranean basin. Nevertheless, the bedrock of this entire edifice persisted as the diligent scrutiny and painstaking investigations initiated by individuals akin to Melissa, pioneers who perceived latent promise within untamed vegetation, who exhibited the fortitude to commit their temporal and energetic resources to outcomes yet unassured, and who held an unwavering conviction that the terrestrial sphere would reciprocate their diligent stewardship with bounteous yields. Even in the contemporary era, characterized by automated farming techniques and sophisticated botanical engineering, the fundamental bond between the agriculturalist and the earth persists unaltered. An individual must still diligently monitor meteorological conditions, meticulously cultivate the ground, and undertake innumerable minor judgments that ultimately dictate whether a crop will flourish or falter. The lineal successors of those primordial Greek cultivators persevere in their vocations across global farmlands, upholding an unbroken legacy of symbiotic engagement with the planet. A tradition inaugurated when a woman identified as Melissa initially observed that dispersed kernels possessed the capacity to yield plentiful reaps. What additional subtle advancements molded the quotidian existence of the ancient Hellenes, which skilled craftspersons and master artisans laid the groundwork of an entire civilization through their steadfast commitment to their respective vocations. Under the towering presence of Acrocorinth, where the inaugural rays of dawn illuminate the bustling ateliers bordering the venerable urban pathways, Nicias commences his daily regimen, mirroring the practice of his paternal lineage and his grandfather before him. The potter's wheel revolves gracefully beneath his discerning fingers, as pliant clay ascends into forms destined to transport vintages across the Mediterranean Sea, contain oleaginous liquid for sacred luminaries, and safeguard cereals through yet another frigid season. Yet Nicias's thoughts are not occupied with mercantile routes or commercial transactions as he labors. He is attuned to the very essence of the clay, discerning the precise instant it achieves its optimal state to fulfill its inherent purpose. Corinthian ceramic ware enjoys widespread renown across the entirety of the antique globe, celebrated not for its sheer magnitude or imposing magnificence, but rather for its impeccable symmetry, its exquisitely intricate painted adornments, and the manner in which it appears to encapsulate an intrinsic aspect of Hellenic existence. Every single artifact originates from earthen material excavated from particular elevations encircling the metropolis, a clay that has been consecrated by eons of Mediterranean precipitation and solar radiance. The artisans of pottery possess an intimate familiarity with each distinct geological reserve, capable of specifying which elevated terrain yields clay that vitrifies into a rich, earthy terracotta, and which depression provides the refined, unblemished substance ideally suited for elaborate pictorial embellishment. The laborious undertaking commences prior to the emergence of daylight, during the tranquil hours when the atmosphere remains cool and motionless. Nicias, along with his diligent apprentices, undertakes the preparation of the raw clay, meticulously manipulating it with a motion akin to kneading bread dough. This action serves to expunge any entrapped pockets of air that could potentially induce fissures during the subsequent firing stage. This particular procedure, known as wedging, demands both sustained forbearance and considerable physical vigor. The argillaceous material must be continuously processed until it achieves an impeccable homogeneity, exhibiting a pliancy that readily responds to the artisan's tactile engagement, yet without becoming excessively pliable or unduly rigid. A proficient ceramist can ascertain the precise moment the clay is optimally conditioned simply by its tactile sensation within their grasp, the manner in which it yields to exerted force, and the faint thermal emanation that arises from its manipulation. The profound connection between human ingenuity and the raw earth unfolds as the material is meticulously transformed. At the potter's wheel, Nicias achieves a state of deep concentration, akin to a meditative trance. His feet skillfully operate the pedal, maintaining the steady rotation of the substantial stone disc, while his practiced hands expertly sculpt the pliant clay upward into established designs. These encompass a variety of forms: the elegant amphora for the preservation and transportation of wine, the expansive craters for the communal mixing of beverages at intellectual symposiums, modest cups for everyday domestic use, and ornate ceremonial vessels destined for significant religious festivals. Each of these shapes has undergone centuries of meticulous refinement, their dimensions calibrated and recalibrated across generations until they achieved that quintessential harmony between aesthetic allure and practical utility that truly epitomizes Hellenic artistry. The process of throwing pottery, when executed by a true master, appears deceptively simple, yet it demands a lifetime of dedicated practice to acquire true proficiency. Applying excessive pressure can cause the delicate walls to crumble inward, while insufficient force leaves them unwieldy and ungraceful. The fundamental principle lies in interpreting the clay's inherent responses, understanding its natural inclinations for movement, and collaborating with its intrinsic properties rather than struggling against them. Nicias frequently works with his eyes closed, relying solely on his acute sense of touch to guide the yielding clay into its intended silhouette. Once the foundational structure is complete, the subsequent artistic embellishment commences. While the clay remains slightly pliable but sufficiently firm for handling, the decorative painters, masters of a distinct discipline, assume control. These accomplished artists, having dedicated decades to mastering the intricate craft of painting, create elaborate scenes that narrate mythical sagas, ancient legends, vignettes of daily life, thrilling athletic competitions, and solemn religious ceremonies. They employ delicate brushes crafted from fine animal hair, utilizing slip, a meticulously prepared liquid clay that possesses a specific viscosity, allowing it to glide effortlessly without bleeding. The painting techniques are as exacting and precise as any other facet of the craft. Initially, a light outline is delicately traced with a thin brush. Subsequently, the primary colors are applied with solid coverage, typically featuring black figures starkly contrasted against the natural red-orange hue of the fired clay, or, in later styles, red figures set against a deep black background. The painters must execute their work with both speed and absolute precision, as errors are exceedingly difficult, if not impossible, to rectify. Consequently, each brush stroke must be confident and assured, contributing to intricate designs destined to be indelibly imprinted through the kiln's intense heat, achieving lasting permanence. The kiln firing represents perhaps the most intense period of trepidation in the entire arduous process. All the preceding weeks of meticulous craftsmanship, the careful preparation of the clay, the expert shaping of the vessels, the intricate painting of decorations, and the patient waiting for each piece to dry thoroughly, culminate in the 3 days and nights when the pottery resides within furnaces fueled by carefully tended flames, which must be held at an absolutely precise thermal level. If the temperature becomes too elevated, the delicate pieces risk deformation or fracture. Conversely, if it remains too low, they will fail to develop the vibrant hues and durable glaze that render Corinthian pottery so highly esteemed. Nicias has cultivated an intuitive ability to interpret the kiln's subtle language, much like a seasoned farmer reads the weather. The particular shade and intensity of the flames convey vital information about the internal temperature. The distinct sound of the burning wood indicates the residual moisture content within the fuel. The very aroma of the smoke reveals whether the fire is burning cleanly or if nuanced adjustments are required. During these critical firing days, he permits himself only brief snatches of rest, checking the kilns every few hours, adding more wood, regulating the airflow, and making the innumerable minute adjustments that ultimately determine the difference between resounding triumph and disheartening failure. The pottery workshop is typically a place of serene focus, interspersed with periods of heightened exertion. During the throwing sessions, undivided concentration is directed towards the revolving wheels, with only the rhythmic hum of the revolving earthen form and the gentle lapping of water, used to keep hands and clay moist, breaking the silence. During painting time, the atmosphere becomes even more subdued as artists immerse themselves in creating intricate scenes destined to be admired for centuries. However, during the firing phase, the entire workshop thrums with a palpable tension as everyone anxiously awaits the outcome, hoping their diligent work has successfully endured the fiery crucible. When the kilns finally cool and the moment arrives for their unloading, an inevitable blend of elation and trepidation fills the air. Some pieces reveal themselves precisely as envisioned, their colors luminous, their forms unblemished, and their decorations sharp and distinct. Others exhibit the nuanced distinctions that arise from the inherent thermal dynamics of the firing process. Slight variations in color, distinctive surface textures in the glaze, or minor blemishes that paradoxically endow each piece with greater singularity and value. And occasionally, despite every precaution, there are casualties, pieces that fractured from temperature-induced strain, decorations that failed to fire correctly, or forms that deformed beyond functionality. Yet failure is an intrinsic part of the pedagogical journey in any craft, and pottery, above all other virtues, instills the paramount virtue of perseverance. Nicias has learned to embrace both triumphs and setbacks as invaluable instructors, meticulously studying each result to comprehend what factors contributed to success or error, how techniques might be refined, and how the enigmatic transmutation of clay, fire, and human skill might be more profoundly understood. He preserves broken pieces not as distressing reminders of failure, but rather as didactic specimens, examining them to gain deeper insight into how clay behaves under a myriad of different conditions. The finished pottery, having completed its creation, then departs the workshop to commence its purposeful existence within society. Wine amphorae embark on extensive journeys aboard merchant ships, transporting not merely vintages, but also disseminating tidings, anecdotal accounts, and profound cultural exchanges to distant ports. Ceremonial vessels assume their hallowed positions within sacred sanctuaries, containing votive gifts for divine patrons and proving integral to solemn observances that forge profound links between populace and their inherited spiritual heritage. Daily use pottery graces domestic interiors throughout the Mediterranean basin, elevating mundane routines like eating and drinking into experiences of heightened aesthetic appreciation, and connecting individuals more deeply to the artistic traditions that embody the very essence of Hellenic culture. However, for Nicias and his fellow potters, the primary and most significant discerning public resides within their own community. These are the neighbors who come to acquire oil lamps for their homes, water jugs for their wells, and cups for their tables. These local customers possess an intimate understanding of ceramics, capable of discerning the nuanced distinctions that separate masterful creation from merely competent fabrication. They comprehend that a well-crafted pot will endure steadfastly across generations, that beautifully rendered decorations imbue everyday chores with enhanced gratification, and that patronizing indigenous artisans contributes to the preservation of cultural legacies that make their polis distinct. As evening approaches and the last potter's wheel ceases its rotation, Nicias cleans his instruments with the identical meticulousness applied to sculpting the raw material. Each tool fulfills a specific function, demanding its prescribed method of upkeep and playing its vital role in the intricate undertaking that transmutes base earth into artistic expression. Tomorrow he will recommence his work with fresh clay, facing new demands and embracing fresh opportunities to participate in the time-honored discourse between human creativity and natural materials. What other artisans discovered profound purpose in this deliberate metamorphosis of raw materials into artifacts possessing both aesthetic appeal and practical function, just as the Corinthian potters molded earth into containers that bore the very essence of culture across the seas. The shipwrights of Athens fashioned timber into the maritime conveyances themselves. In the expansive maritime construction facilities in Piraeus, where the percussive symphony of hammering resonates from the first light of dawn until dusk, Alexandros traces his fingers across a piece of seasoned oak, discerning the intrinsic pattern of its fibers to understand how this particular timber desires to be utilized. Some pieces are earmarked for the primary structural beams, the skeletal foundation of seafaring craft, destined to transport traders and combatants across the Homeric, wine-dark expanse. Others will form the curvilinear framework, imparting to the craft both its silhouette and structural integrity. Still others will be sculpted into the graceful arcs of figureheads, elegant curves of prows that cleave the aqueous surface with an almost cetacean fluidity. The shipbuilding process commences far from the bustling quays, deep within the sylvan expanses where trees are chosen and harvested, based on ancestral wisdom transmitted through generations. Sturdy oak is selected for its inherent robustness, lightweight pine for its buoyancy, and aromatic cedar for its natural resilience against decay and pests. Each type of wood has its optimal application, its perfected curing duration, and its distinctive hurdles and inherent benefits. Alexandros learned early in his apprenticeship that comprehending timber is akin to fathoming human nature. Each piece possesses its own unique temperament, its own way of reacting to pressure, and its own intrinsic inclinations for its manipulation. Seasoning timber is perhaps the most arduous test of endurance in shipbuilding. Newly harvested lumber retains an excessive aqueous content, rendering it unsuitable for immediate use. It must be arranged in carefully spaced piles to facilitate atmospheric flow, shielded from precipitation, yet exposed to ambient atmospheric conditions, and allowed to desiccate over extended periods, spanning months or even entire years. Unseasoned timber risks distortion or fissuring as it dries, potentially nullifying protracted periods of diligent labor. However, adequately cured wood achieves a state of steadfastness and foreseeability, ready to integrate seamlessly into structures that must endure the relentless forces of gale and ocean swells. The conception of ships demands a delicate equilibrium amidst conflicting requirements that would test the acumen of even the most skilled architect. They must be robust enough to weather tempestuous gales, yet sufficiently agile to navigate with optimal speed through water. They must be capacious enough to transport substantial freight, yet compact enough for facile navigation within confined anchorages. They must be impervious enough to repel oceanic ingress, yet pliant enough to undulate with the swells without structural compromise. Each specific choice in conception influences every subsequent consideration, creating intricate conundrums that shipwrights resolve by means of accumulated practical knowledge, insightful foresight, and meticulous empirical analysis of what has proven effective. Alexandros dedicates his expertise to the construction of mercantile ships, the indispensable engines of commerce across the Mediterranean, which transport a diverse array of commodities, ranging from vital foodstuffs like grain and wine to crafted ceramics and essential olive oil between distant ports. These vessels, while lacking the inherent spectacle of military vessels with their formidable bronze prows and serried ranks of oarsmen, represent something of commensurate significance. The steadfast economic interconnections that interweave the very fabric of the Hellenic realm. A meticulously built merchant ship might remain in active service for many scores of years, completing countless maritime journeys, conveying innumerable tons of freight, and thereby sustaining the economic well-being of merchants, mariners, and all those whose existence is predicated upon oceanic trade. The economic prosperity of the city-state of Athens was inextricably linked to the successful operation of its maritime commerce. The methodical construction of a ship adhered to time-honored practices, echoing the ancient craft of shipbuilding itself. The initial crucial step involved the laying of the keel, a singular massive timber intended to serve as the vessel's fundamental spine. This foundational element demanded absolute straightness, meticulously selected from the most substantial and finest tree available, then aged for numerous years to ensure its complete stability and formidable strength. The solemn keel-laying ceremony was invariably graced by the presence of the ship's prospective owner, frequently accompanied by votive offerings to the sea deity Poseidon and fervent supplications for secure voyages. With the keel firmly positioned, the intrinsic character of the vessel was decisively established. Progressing frame by frame, the skeletal structure of the ship gradually materialized. Each individual rib necessitated meticulous shaping to forge the specific curves that would dictate the vessel's hydrodynamic performance. An overly sharp contour would enable swift passage through waves but compromise cargo capacity, whereas an excessively blunt form would offer stability at the cost of speed. The master shipwright, drawing upon the ship's designated purpose, the proprietor's specific preferences, and a wealth of accumulated experience observing the performance of diverse hull designs under varying conditions, made these pivotal determinations. The subsequent planking procedure demanded the utmost skill, as every board had to be flawlessly aligned with its adjacent counterparts, culminating in a hull that was simultaneously robust and impervious to water. These planks were secured using bronze nails and wooden dowels, subsequently sealed with a concoction of tar and oakum, a loose fibrous material derived from aged ropes that expands upon contact with moisture, thereby creating joints that paradoxically tightened further when immersed in water. This venerable technique proved remarkably efficacious. Properly constructed wooden vessels could maintain their watertight integrity for several decades, provided they received diligent maintenance. Within the confines of the hull, considerable attention was dedicated to optimizing cargo handling and ensuring the comfort of the crew. Merchant ships necessitated expansive, unhindered holds where goods could be securely stowed and readily accessed. They required freshwater reservoirs designed to prevent contamination during extended voyages. Furthermore, provisions included designated sleeping quarters for the crew, cooking facilities engineered to mitigate fire hazards, and ample storage for the provisions and equipment essential for weeks spent at sea. Each minute detail mandated meticulous planning, as errors discovered post-launch proved both financially burdensome and exceedingly challenging to rectify. The ceremonial launching of a newly built ship invariably marked an occasion for celebration, yet it simultaneously engendered a palpable sense of apprehension among all individuals involved in its construction. The culmination of months of painstaking labor, the myriad decisions concerning materials and construction methodologies, and the collective prayers and aspirations invested in the endeavor converged upon the pivotal instant when the vessel first encountered the water. Would it achieve the correct flotation level? Would its handling prove satisfactory? Would it ultimately validate the considerable investment of time and resources? The vast majority of ships performed precisely as anticipated. Nevertheless, there were always minor unforeseen occurrences, slight adjustments that became necessary, and invaluable lessons gleaned for subsequent projects. Following its launch, the ship embarked upon its operational career. However, Alexandros's involvement with the vessel did not conclude at this juncture. Wooden ships mandated continuous upkeep. Hulls periodically required cleaning and resealing. Rigging systems necessitated replacement. Storms inflicted damage that demanded repair. Ships routinely returned to the very shipyards where they originated, bearing tales of distant ports, tangible evidence of the efficacy of their construction techniques, and valuable suggestions for enhancements in future vessels. These returning ships bore a resemblance to adult offspring revisiting their parents, conveying news from the wider world while remaining intrinsically linked to their origins. The shipyard itself functioned as a distinct community embedded within the broader populace of Piraeus. Shipwrights collaborated closely with sailmakers, rope manufacturers, bronzesmiths crafting nails and fittings, and carvers who fashioned the intricate decorative figures adorning ships' prows. Each specialized craft mutually supported the others, thereby forging an intricate network of specialized proficiencies that underpinned the viability of the maritime economy. Young men matured within this environment, acquiring not only mastery of their own specific trades, but also a comprehensive understanding of all facets of ship construction and ongoing maintenance. The profound economic significance of shipping translated into considerable societal esteem for shipwrights within Athenian society. Their specialized abilities were indispensable to the city's prosperity, their handiwork conspicuously present in every harbor, and their craftsmanship rigorously tested each time their vessels confronted the formidable challenges of wind and wave. Yet, akin to all authentic artisans, their deepest gratification stemmed not from external recognition, but from the intrinsic satisfaction derived from the work itself, from the tactile sensation of perfectly interlocking joints, the visual spectacle of elegant curves materializing beneath their skilled hands, and the profound certainty that their creations would safely transport people and valuable commodities across perilous waters. As the dusk descended and the day's labor drew to a close, Alexandros perambulated through the shipyard, meticulously inspecting projects at various stages of completion. Here, a keel had just been laid for a ship whose construction would not be finalized for many months. There, a vessel neared its completion, awaiting only its ultimate protective coating of tar and the installation of its intricate rigging. Each individual ship embodied hundreds of critical decisions, thousands of precise cuts and fittings, and countless hours of diligent, patient toil. Yet they also symbolized something far more profound: intricate connections between geographically distant locales, abundant opportunities for vibrant trade and meaningful cultural exchange, and the inherent human impetus to explore and embark on adventures that has perpetually drawn humanity to the boundless sea. Beyond the bustling shipyards, what other skilled artisans contributed their meticulous efforts to the foundational infrastructure that sustained Greek civilization? High upon the precipitous slopes of Mount Parnassus, where majestic eagles soared in silent arcs and the atmosphere grew exquisitely thin, the resonant sound of chisel striking stone had reverberated through the centuries. However, these were not the dramatic reverberations of master sculptors crafting artistic marvels or visionary architects erecting magnificent temples. Rather, these were the patient, rhythmic percussions of stonecutters diligently preparing the massive foundation blocks, the sturdy wall stones, and the innumerable pieces of precisely hewn masonry that rendered possible the architectural wonders for which ancient Greece achieved enduring renown. Demetrios, wiping beads of perspiration from his forehead, meticulously scrutinized the block he had been assiduously shaping since the break of dawn, carefully verifying its dimensions against the wooden template suspended from his belt. The hallowed oracle at Delphi attracted devout pilgrims from every corner of the known world. Yet, remarkably few visitors paused to contemplate the very stones beneath their feet as they ascended the sacred pathway toward Apollo's revered temple. Each individual block had been painstakingly cut by hand, meticulously shaped to interlock flawlessly with its neighboring pieces, and finished to tolerances measured in mere fractions of inches. The demanding work undeniably required immense physical strength, but more significantly, it demanded unyielding patience, unwavering precision, and a profound, intimate comprehension of the stone itself. Its intrinsic fracturing properties, its resistance to weathering, and the differential responses of various types of stone to diverse tools and techniques. Demetrios had acquired his venerable craft from his esteemed uncle, who in turn had learned from his own grandfather, forming an unbroken lineage of specialized knowledge extending back to the earliest Greeks who first discovered that local limestone could be efficiently quarried and skillfully fashioned into sturdy building blocks. The fundamental techniques had undergone minimal alteration over the countless generations. The essential tools remained bronze chisels and robust iron hammers, wooden wedges, and sturdy rope hoists. However, the profound understanding of stone, the subtle, nuanced judgments concerning its grain and inherent hardness, and the detection of invisible flaws that could either guarantee success or precipitate the failure of a block. This invaluable knowledge deepened exponentially with each passing year of practical experience. The initial quarrying process commenced with an astute interpretation of the stone formation itself, comprehending how the rock had been deposited in ancient seas, identifying the natural fracture lines, and discerning which specific areas would yield the most superior building material. Demetrios possessed the uncanny ability to traverse a quarry and accurately pinpoint locations where the stone would be impeccably suited for intricate carving, areas where it was appropriate only for rougher work, and places where concealed imperfections rendered it entirely unsuitable for construction. This profound expertise was derived from handling thousands of individual blocks, meticulously observing their behavior under various stresses, and learning to recognize the subtle indicators that reliably predicted either success or ultimate failure. The exacting extraction of blocks from the living rock necessitated specialized techniques that frequently appeared almost magical to uninitiated outsiders. Holes were painstakingly drilled in meticulously planned patterns along the desired lines of fracture. Subsequently, wooden wedges were carefully inserted into these holes and thoroughly saturated with water. As the wood absorbed the moisture and gradually expanded, it generated immense internal pressure that precisely split the stone along predictable trajectories. This methodical process was undeniably slow, but unfailingly reliable, consistently producing clean breaks with minimal material waste. Any attempt to rush the work or to extract blocks too rapidly invariably resulted in undesirable fractures that ruined valuable raw material. Once successfully extracted, each individual block had to be precisely shaped to its definitive dimensions using traditional hand tools that had undergone remarkably little change since the Bronze Age. The initial, rough shaping was accomplished with heavy hammers and broad chisels, systematically removing larger pieces and establishing the fundamental form. Following this, the meticulous work commenced with smaller, more refined tools, gradually refining the surfaces, meticulously checking all dimensions, and rigorously testing the fit with adjacent blocks. The ultimate finishing process could easily consume days of patient, dedicated labor, involving the careful removal of all tool marks, the creation of impeccably smooth surfaces, and the achievement of the precise accuracy that permitted blocks to fit together seamlessly without the need for mortar. Distinct building projects inherently demanded divergent approaches to stonework. Foundation blocks, above all else, required unparalleled strength. They had to be capable of bearing enormous structural loads without succumbing to cracking or settling. These particular pieces were often intentionally left rough on surfaces that would not be visible in the finished structure, with all meticulous attention concentrated solely on the load-bearing surfaces, which absolutely had to be perfectly flat and true. Wall blocks necessitated careful attention to their outer faces, which would be prominently visible in the completed edifice, but their inner surfaces could be finished with slightly less precision. Column drums, however, demanded the most exacting and precise work of all, given that even the slightest irregularities would be significantly magnified as the column ascended to its full height. The conveyance of these meticulously prepared blocks from the excavation sites to their ultimate architectural destinations introduced a distinct set of formidable obstacles. Certain monolithic pieces of masonry tipped the scales at several tons, necessitating their careful transit across treacherous mountain trails through methods that demanded a greater reliance upon human patience and ingenious problem-solving, rather than brute mechanical force. The deployment of robust wooden rollers, intricate rope systems, and an exacting degree of synchronized effort among various teams of laborers enabled these colossal pieces of stone to be maneuvered securely across expanses that, to the casual observer, appeared utterly unfeasible. This endeavor was fraught with inherent peril. An unsecured piece of stone, dislodging from its precarious position, possessed the capacity to obliterate anyone caught in its trajectory. Nevertheless, seasoned crews cultivated an instinctive rhythm and an elaborate system of inter-team communication that effectively mitigated these inherent perils, ensuring a safer, albeit still hazardous, progression. Upon arrival at the bustling building locale, the skilled stonecutters engaged in a symbiotic collaboration with the chief architects and master builders, meticulously executing concluding refinements to guarantee an impeccable integration of each component. Despite the employment of the most scrupulous measuring instruments and precise templating techniques, minor alterations were frequently indispensable. A particular block might necessitate a subtle trimming to compensate for subtle discrepancies in the foundational layers beneath it, or its surfaces could demand further abrasion to ensure optimal structural engagement. This exacting on-site fitting process called upon every skill honed in the quarry, augmented by the compounding difficulty of navigating the concurrent activities of other specialized artisans. Carpenters diligently erecting complex roof structures, sculptors painstakingly carving intricate decorative elements, and painters diligently preparing expansive surfaces for their artistic embellishments. The implements employed by the stonecutter, though uncomplicated in their design, were profoundly efficacious, each fabricated with specific operational facets of the craft in mind. Weighty sledgehammers designated for initial fracturing of raw material, medium-sized hammers for the broad contouring of blocks, delicate small hammers reserved for fine articulation and intricate detailing, chisels presented in a spectrum of dimensions for diverse incision tasks, sturdy wooden wedges utilized for cleaving substantial sections, and a range of bronze and iron tools tailored for distinct forms of ablation. Complementing these were essential measuring devices, including rulers, squares, plumb lines, and levels, all indispensable for guaranteeing unerring precision in every cut. It was paramount that each tool be diligently cared for, meticulously sharpened, and impeccably serviced, as blunted or compromised implements rendered meticulous craftsmanship utterly unattainable, fundamentally undermining the integrity of the finished work. The prodigious physical exertions inherent in stone-cutting were truly immense. The occupation necessitated robust physical power, unyielding endurance, and the invaluable capacity for unwavering focus amidst debilitating weariness. Whether contending with oppressive heat, biting cold, or the incessant cacophony of hammers striking stone, Demetrios, a veteran of this arduous craft, bore the indelible marks of his profession. His hands were permanently scarred from countless small cuts and sharp chips. His back stooped from decades spent laboring over ponderous blocks, and his hearing impaired by countless years of relentless tool noise. Yet he also possessed an invaluable attribute that transcended quantifiable metrics: an innate comprehension of stone, a prescient vision that allowed him to discern within unhewn quarry blocks the magnificent ultimate architectural forms they were destined to become. Perhaps the singularly astonishing characteristic of ancient stonework lies in its enduring resilience. Edifices meticulously fashioned by master craftsmen such as Demetrios have persisted across millennia, transcending the ephemeral existence of their founding societies, remaining steadfast as successive empires ascended and dissolved around them. This extraordinary persistence was no mere fortuity. Rather, it stemmed directly from scrupulous dedication and unwavering attention to every minute detail embedded within the entire construction process. Commencing with the discriminating choice of raw resources, extending through the exactitude of their incisions, and culminating in the sophisticated techniques employed for interlocking masonry units, the stonecutters dedicated to Delphi's sacred precinct labored not solely on its magnificent temples and stately public buildings, but equally upon the essential functional substructure that ensured the sanctuary's operational integrity. This comprehensive remit encompassed robust buttressing ramparts, designed to restrain the volatile mountainside soil, intricate drainage systems that effectively diverted precipitation safely away from vital edifices, thoughtfully laid steps and pathways enabling pilgrims to traverse the precipitous topography securely, secure repositories for votive offerings and vital provisions, and comfortable dwellings for the resident priests and diligent workers. Every facet of this construction demanded the identical meticulous diligence concerning materials and techniques, as did the renowned monumental edifices, even though a substantial portion of it remained largely unnoticed by transient visitors. The cyclical patterns inherent in construction work dictated that stonecutters frequently enjoyed several months each winter to engage in alternative endeavors. A segment of these artisans would journey to diverse construction sites, tracing the progression of building cycles across the vast expanse of the Mediterranean basin. Others judiciously utilized this interval for quarrying fresh stone and amassing reserves of raw material, strategically stockpiling for the subsequent year's ambitious projects. Yet another group dedicated their time to nurturing nascent talent, rigorously training apprentices, and thereby transmitting the accumulated wisdom and practical proficiencies that ensured the perpetuation of their specialized artistry. These dormant months proved just as pivotal as the peak building period, furnishing invaluable time for instrument upkeep, meticulous planning, and a profound kind of reflection that consistently fostered incremental advancements in technique and methodology. The profound spiritual import of Delphi bestowed an additional layer of profundity upon the stonecutters' arduous endeavors. These artisans intuitively grasped that their meticulous craft contributed to something that transcended mere structural fabrication. They were, in essence, consecrating environments where mortals could forge communion with the celestial realm, where the oracle's divine pronouncements would resonate across generations, and where countless devotees would discover profound spiritual enlightenment and revitalization. This hallowed objective imbued even the most mundane chores with profound significance, transforming the arduous yet deliberate labor of cutting and fitting stone into what felt akin to a tangible act of devotion, a corporeal oblation presented to the deities presiding over this consecrated locale. As Demetrios concluded his daily toil and commenced the meticulous tending to his implements, his gaze drifted upwards towards the nascent temple form gradually ascending above him. He understood that each individual block comprising those towering walls had been meticulously handled by artisans akin to himself, had been sculpted by instruments identical to his own, and had been interlocked with precision through the deliberate exercise of proficiencies honed across countless lineages. On the morrow, he would embark upon the shaping of yet another block, and then another, offering his individual contribution to a monumental construction project destined to endure for epochs beyond his own lifetime. In the deep nocturnal gloom preceding daybreak in ancient Athens, while the majority of the metropolis remained in slumber, Thalia meticulously ignited the hearth within her bakery's capacious masonry kiln. The essential task of nourishing a populace commenced many hours before the city stirred with morning thoughts of breakfast, unfolding within the serene hours when bakers metamorphosed basic components, flour, water, salt, and the enigmatic vitality of indigenous leavening agents, into the very bread that provided fundamental sustenance. Her hands, exhibiting the assured dexterity born of 3 decades of practice, moved with a practiced grace as she constructed the thermal core that would gradually saturate the substantial thermal mass of the oven's walls, priming for the commencement of another cycle of this venerable transmutative process that turned simple cereal into essential nourishment. Saxto. The establishment itself was strategically situated at the intersection of 2 thriving thoroughfares, ideally located to cater to the community's quotidian requirements. Throughout the daylight hours, its interior would brim with patrons, animated conversation, and the vibrant pandemonium of trade. However, in these pre-dawn quietude, the space was solely the domain of Thalia and the serene cadence of her artistry. She moved among the rising loaves that had been undergoing nocturnal fermentation, inspecting their proofing dough, assessing their optimal state with a subtle tactile evaluation that communicated everything crucial regarding precise timing, ambient temperature, and the enigmatic vital essence that rendered the transformation of dough into bread even conceivable. The foundational principle of successful bread-making commenced with a profound comprehension of the cereal itself, specifically the wheat, barley, and myriad other grains that farmers, much like those pioneering Hellenic cultivators, had mastered the art of cultivation millennia in the past. Diverse cereal varieties inherently yielded distinct gustatory profiles and tactile qualities, and truly adept boulangers possessed the acumen to blend these varietals artfully for desired culinary outcomes. Wheat flour, for instance, created the delicate, aerated breads typically favored for ceremonial repasts and special occasions. Conversely, barley produced substantially more compact and nourishing loaves, which effectively quenched profound appetites and imparted sustained vigor. Mixed-grain breads, meanwhile, offered nuanced palatal experiences and carried the pragmatic benefit of utilizing any cereals procurable at economical valuations, ensuring efficiency and resourcefulness. The milling of cereal into pulverized meal represented a fundamental task that forged an inextricable link for each baked article to the agrarian progression originating in remote agricultural expanses. Thalia meticulously cultivated affiliations with several proximate grist mills, possessing an innate understanding that the caliber of the milled product profoundly dictated the excellence of the finished bread. She possessed the remarkable ability to discern through tactile and olfactory assessment whether flour was genuinely fresh, appropriately pulverized, and entirely devoid of the impurities or adulteration that unprincipled purveyors sometimes introduced to clandestinely augment their financial gains. Exemplary flour possessed a velvety and subtly temperate feel, exuded an aromatic purity, and ultimately yielded a pliable mixture that responded consistently during preparation, culminating in loaves of superior taste and pleasing consistency upon baking. Water, the next indispensable component, might appear deceptively straightforward, yet experienced bakers understood implicitly that varied aquatic origins yielded disparate outcomes. The distinctive mineral composition, thermal state, and intrinsic clarity of the water collectively influenced the rheological properties of the dough, the proliferation rate of the leavening agent, and ultimately, the gustatory profile of the baked product. Thalia, with her profound expertise, consistently drew her water from a specific renowned spring celebrated for its unvarying excellence. Over years, she had meticulously learned to calibrate her methodologies to account for seasonal climatic fluctuations in both temperature and mineral content. During the colder winter months, the chilled water necessitated an extended kneading duration to foster optimal gluten development. Conversely, in the heat of summer, she sometimes judiciously incorporated frozen water to counteract excessive thermal accumulation within the dough during the mixing phase. Salt, far from being a singular component, fulfilled a panoply of functions within the intricate process of bread making. Transcending its role as a mere palatal enhancer, it significantly fortified the inherent gluten matrix, thereby facilitating the dough's structural integrity throughout the proving and thermal transformation stages. Moreover, it precisely modulated the metabolic processes of the leavening agent, mitigating premature volumetric expansion and preventing the development of an undesirable crumb consistency. Furthermore, it functioned as an intrinsic conservator, thereby prolonging the comestible viability of the loaf. The precise amount of salt had to be meticulously calibrated. An insufficient quantity would render the bread insipid and structurally compromised, while an excess would impede the fermentative action of the yeast and impart undesirably saline gustatory notes. Yet the singularly enigmatic component was yeast itself, that microscopic biological entity that miraculously transmuted compact dough into ethereal, aerated loaves. In Thalia's era, long prior to the advent of industrially produced leavening agents, boulangers assiduously cultivated mother starters, which were specialized concoctions of pulverized grain and purified liquid that harnessed ambient indigenous yeasts, thereby furnishing the requisite effervescent capacity for each day's bread. These living starters demanded unremitting quotidian vigilance, consistent nourishment with fresh flour and water, coupled with precise thermal regulation, was essential to sustain the vitality and metabolic vigor of the yeast culture. A truly robust starter could persist for extended epochs, indeed spanning multiple decades, frequently bequeathed across successive lineages as an invaluable heirloom, a testament to enduring culinary heritage. The intricate process of blending and working the dough served as the quintessential demonstration of a baker's profound expertise. Insufficient amalgamation of components would inevitably lead to a loaf characterized by an undesirable consistency and an irregular interior structure. Conversely, excessive manipulation risked compromising the gluten network, culminating in compact, weighty bread. Thalia, through years of dedicated practice, had cultivated an innate ability to discern the dough's optimal state purely by touch. A perfectly matured dough exhibited a velvety smoothness and a resilient elasticity, yielding consistently to the demands of elongation and formation. Furthermore, this vital kneading action meticulously integrated air within the mass, thereby establishing the fundamental framework that the yeast would subsequently elaborate upon during the crucial fermentation stage. The phase of rising, commonly known as fermentation, arguably presented the most significant test of a baker's fortitude and patience. It necessitated the artisan to meticulously cultivate an environment precisely calibrated for success, sufficiently temperate to invigorate yeast metabolism, yet not excessively heated to avert an overly rapid fermentation, adequately moist to preclude the formation of a dry surface layer, but never so damp as to render the dough adhesive and intractable. Thalia, having honed her craft over countless hours, possessed an almost instinctual comprehension of these delicate parameters, adeptly modifying both the duration of the rise and the ambient temperatures in response to prevailing atmospheric conditions, seasonal shifts, and the distinctive attributes inherent to each individual batch of dough. The deliberate act of molding loaves demanded a harmonious blend of specialized dexterity and an acute aesthetic perception. Various configurations were not merely arbitrary, but fulfilled distinct functional objectives. Elongated loaves, for instance, offered an expansive surface area of crust, catering specifically to patrons who savored the resilient, satisfying chew of a thoroughly baked exterior. Spherical loaves, in contrast, facilitated a more uniform heat distribution during cooking and retained their freshness for an extended duration. Compact, solitary rolls, meanwhile, presented a practical and convenient option for clientele desiring individual portions. Each unique form necessitated its own particular manipulation methods, specific fermentation periods, and tailored baking modifications. Thalia derived immense gratification from crafting loaves that transcended mere nutritional value and delectable taste, striving for creations that were also inherently attractive. Recognizing the profound truth that individuals consume with their visual faculties just as much as with their palates. The ultimate proofing, occurring subsequent to the shaping process, held paramount importance for attaining the desired internal consistency in the completed bread. Loaves that had not undergone sufficient fermentation would invariably exhibit a compact and weighty character, whereas bread permitted to overproof risked an unfortunate collapse during its time in the oven, leading to an inconsistent texture and an inadequate overall volume. Thalia employed an array of diagnostic techniques to ascertain optimal readiness, delicately prodding the dough to gauge the rapidity of its recoil, meticulously scrutinizing its surface for telltale indications of appropriate fermentation, and precisely timing the rise informed by her extensive practical knowledge gleaned from analogous circumstances. This nuanced discernment was a faculty acquired solely through countless years of diligent application and meticulous observation of outcomes. The act of baking itself demanded a profound comprehension of the formidable stone oven that stood as the central feature of the establishment. Such ovens were traditionally brought to temperature by igniting fires directly within their cavernous baking chambers, with the embers and ash meticulously cleared away once the robust stone walls had assimilated sufficient thermal energy to process numerous successive quantities of bread. This retained, latent warmth then cooked the bread with a gradual and consistent intensity, thereby fostering the development of the characteristically thick, resilient crusts and the succulent, yielding interiors that were the hallmark of time-honored bread varieties. Skillfully regulating the oven's thermal output and efficiently arranging the loaves within its confines constituted competencies that necessitated many years of dedicated tutelage to truly command. The systematic progression of baking adhered to a meticulously devised strategy designed to optimize the utilization of the oven's formidable heat. Initially, the apex of its thermal intensity was reserved for robust, substantial breads, necessitating vigorous heat to facilitate the ideal formation and development of their crusts. Subsequently, as the internal temperature gradually diminished, more fragile culinary creations were introduced, encompassing items such as sweetened breads, delicate pastries, and other confections prone to scorching under the initial, fierce heat. Ultimately, the lingering residual warmth was ingeniously repurposed for ancillary duties, including the desiccation of aromatic herbs, the gentle reheating of pre-prepared foodstuffs, or other activities that profited from a mild, sustained warmth. Within a competently managed bakery, the principle of absolute resourcefulness ensured that no energy was ever squandered. The profound societal function of the local bakery transcended the mere provision of staple bread. It intrinsically operated as a pivotal hub for communal assembly, a cherished venue where neighbors could readily disseminate tidings, engage in discourse concerning local happenings, and assiduously cultivate the vital interpersonal bonds that intrinsically unified their communities. Patrons invariably forged enduring relationships with their resident bakers, learning to strategically synchronize their arrivals to coincide with the emergence of their preferred bread varieties from the oven, implicitly relying upon the baker's discerning expertise regarding both quality and immediate freshness, and ultimately regarding the establishment as an unfailing fount of essential daily nourishment. Thalia possessed an intimate understanding of her clientele's diverse preferences, meticulously tailoring her production schedule and offerings to align with these individual tastes. She was keenly aware that Marcos, the artisan potter, favored a substantial barley bread, dense and fortifying, designed to sustain his energy throughout arduous days spent at his wheel. Conversely, Helena, the diligent weaver, exhibited a fondness for delicate wheat rolls, which provided sustenance without inducing drowsiness during her intricate and detailed textile work. Younger patrons, the children, typically gravitated towards sweetened breads enriched with honey and nuts, while the elder members of the community sought out softer loaves, specifically crafted for ease of mastication. This personalized, granular understanding enabled her to cater to her community with an efficacy far surpassing the capabilities of any expansive commercial enterprise. The foundational economic significance of bread within ancient societies conferred upon bakers such as Thalia rolls, imbued with substantial responsibility. Bread was unequivocally not a discretionary indulgence, but an absolute imperative, forming the bedrock of sustenance for the vast majority of the populace. In periods marked by scarcities of grain or volatile price movements, bakers faced the intricate challenge of reconciling their patrons' fundamental requirements with the imperative of their own commercial viability. It was not uncommon for them to proffer credit to their most reliable customers during financially straitened circumstances, operating under the sagacious principle that the preservation of communal bonds held greater intrinsic value than the pursuit of immediate monetary gains. The inherent seasonal fluctuations impacting both the accessibility and inherent characteristics of grain consistently rendered the baker's profession both intellectually stimulating and demanding. Freshly gathered harvests introduced novel flavor profiles and enhanced baking attributes, yet simultaneously compelled modifications in established handling methodologies. Conversely, aged grain often called for altered hydration ratios or extended mixing durations. Atmospheric conditions exerted an influence not solely upon the raw ingredients themselves, but equally upon the ambient baking milieu. Days of elevated humidity mandated recalibrations in the proofing schedules, while colder temperatures might necessitate strategic alterations in oven operation. An accomplished baker, rather than contending with these natural oscillations, assiduously mastered the art of harmonizing their craft with such inherent variations. Religious observances and deeply ingrained cultural customs similarly exerted a profound influence upon the baker's daily endeavors. Specific celebratory feast days necessitated the creation of distinctive breads, meticulously crafted with time-honored forms and specialized components. Nuptial festivities, for example, called for intricately embellished loaves, serving as potent emblems of affluence and fecundity. Conversely, solemn funeral assemblages required unadorned, nourishing breads, fittingly suited to the gravity of such occasions. Thalia assiduously preserved and applied the requisite recipes and methodologies for each of these particular demands, fully grasping that her vocation encompassed not merely the provision of quotidian sustenance, but also the vital guardianship of cherished cultural heritage. As the morning hours advanced and the familiar faces of regular patrons started to appear, seeking their indispensable daily bread, Thalia experienced a profound sense of contentment, a satisfaction born of meticulous effort and accomplishment. The multitude of loaves, gently cooling upon their wooden trestles, embodied countless hours of devoted concentration, decades of accrued proficiency, and a vast legacy of wisdom meticulously transmitted across generations within the esteemed guild of bakers. Each individual loaf was destined to nourish a household, to fuel the day's manifold activities, and to impart the vital energy that sustained the very fabric of the community. With the advent of a new dawn, she would recommence her ancient art, confronting fresh dough, embracing novel challenges, and seizing renewed opportunities to practice the venerable craft that transmuted humble constituents into the fundamental staff of life. In a manner analogous to how bakers such as Thalia provided essential daily nourishment to their respective communities, the dedicated messengers and swift runners of ancient Greece diligently fostered the crucial linkages between geographically disparate locales through their unwavering and persistent service. Philippus, with a practiced motion, settled the robust leather satchel draped across his shoulder and embarked from the venerable city of Athens precisely as the first light of dawn illuminated the majestic slopes of Mount Pentelicus. This marked the commencement of yet another arduous expedition, one destined to convey vital dispatches, personal correspondence, and official decrees across the rugged, undulating terrain that bifurcated one independent city-state from another. His specific objective for this particular day was the prominent city of Corinth. An estimated 2-day journey of consistent progression along thoroughfares that varied from meticulously paved stone to rudimentary dirt tracks, and at times comprised little more than faint impressions winding through untamed wilderness. The demanding existence of a professional courier necessitated a rare confluence of exceptional physical stamina, comprehensive topographical awareness, and refined interpersonal capabilities, attributes possessed by only a select few. Philippus, for instance, was compelled to exhibit sufficient physical robustness to traverse distances of 20 to 30 miles daily on foot, burdened not solely by the messages themselves, but also by the essential provisions requisite for expeditions spanning multiple days. He was obliged to possess an intimate familiarity with the intricate network of roads, the dependable waypoints for rest and replenishment, and the seasonal perils that could potentially impede passage. Furthermore, his character had to inspire such profound confidence that civic authorities, astute merchants, and private individuals alike would unreservedly entrust him with sensitive communications, precious archival materials, and time-critical intelligence that frequently bore direct implications for people's economic well-being and, on occasion, their very survival. The rigorous tutelage for a messenger commenced in early youth, with boys demonstrating a natural aptitude for swift travel being systematically acclimatized to progressively greater distances and more formidable landscapes. The nascent Philippus initiated his training by conveying dispatches between various districts within the sprawling city of Athens, thereby acquiring an intimate knowledge of its intricate urban pathways, progressively cultivating the muscular endurance in his legs indispensable for incessant perambulation, and cultivating the disciplined, unwavering gait that enabled a runner to cover the greatest possible expanse without succumbing to debilitating fatigue. As he consistently demonstrated his dependability on these shorter excursions, he was subsequently entrusted with more extensive commissions, eventually ascending to the demanding intercity itineraries that constituted the fundamental arteries of the Hellenic communication infrastructure. The very thoroughfares themselves served as tangible chronicles, recounting the narrative of protracted centuries marked by incremental refinement and extensive proliferation. Certain pathways adhered to primeval courses, indelibly etched by the ceaseless passage of innumerable generations of wayfarers, pastoralists guiding their herds to seasonal grazing lands, merchants transporting commodities between bustling marketplaces, devout pilgrims journeying to sacred sanctuaries, and military contingents deploying across various domains. Other arteries represented more contemporary engineering feats, meticulously surfaced with precisely cut stone blocks and ingeniously designed to furnish the most direct conduits connecting vital loci. Nevertheless, even the most impeccably constructed roads demanded perpetual upkeep, and couriers acquired the essential acumen to circumvent impediments such as erosional washouts, sudden rock slides, and periodic inundations that could render established routes temporarily impassable. Beyond their formal duties, these dedicated couriers functioned as vital, unofficial conduits of public discourse, transmitting not merely official pronouncements, but also a rich tapestry of local anecdotes, speculative rumors, and commonplace observations that profoundly aided communities in remaining abreast of the wider world's happenings. They invariably brought tidings of upcoming festivals and solemn celebrations, such as the Olympic Games or Dionysian rites, alongside crucial reports concerning the prospects of agricultural yields, whether bountiful harvests or dire shortages, and significant political developments that held the potential to influence regional trade routes or the ease of travel. This pervasive, informal communication network was instrumental in fostering a powerful sense of shared Hellenic culture, weaving a cohesive fabric that effectively bound the disparate city-states and regions of the Greek world together, notwithstanding their inherent political fragmentation. The cultivation of robust relationships with innkeepers, proprietors of stables, and other individuals offering essential services to wayfarers proved utterly indispensable for the efficacy of a messenger's demanding profession. Such vital connections were meticulously forged over countless years of unwavering, honest dealing, prompt and reliable payment for services rendered, and a deep-seated mutual respect. A courier who assiduously cultivated a sterling reputation for equitable transactions and engaging conversation would invariably discover that avenues of assistance opened far more readily. Invaluable local intelligence flowed with greater spontaneity, and crucial aid was always at hand when unforeseen emergencies inevitably arose along their arduous paths. Conversely, those messengers who regrettably exploited the hospitality extended to them or consistently demonstrated unreliability in their conduct swiftly found themselves unequivocally unwelcome at the very establishments upon which they fundamentally relied for the successful and timely completion of their designated routes. A significant advancement in the swift transmission of intelligence was the innovation of staggered relay networks, which permitted dispatches to traverse vast distances at a pace far exceeding what any single individual messenger could achieve. Instead of one person undertaking the entirety of a lengthy expedition, messages were meticulously transferred between fresh runners strategically positioned at regular, predetermined intervals along the route. This ingenious method allowed each successive courier, unburdened by accumulated fatigue, to maintain their maximum possible speed over shorter, manageable distances. Such sophisticated systems inherently demanded extraordinarily careful coordination and an unwavering, absolute reliability from every single participant within the chain, as a breakdown or failure at any solitary point would inevitably fracture the entire sequence. Yet, when meticulously executed, these relay systems possessed the unparalleled capability to convey urgent communications with a rapidity unmatched by any other ancient method of information transfer. For seasoned couriers, an innate proficiency in navigation transmuted into an instinctive mastery as they assiduously learned to orient themselves utilizing celestial bodies like the sun and stars, prominent geographical landmarks, and a myriad of subtle environmental cues, such as prevailing wind patterns, the distribution of specific flora, or the erosion of rock formations that unerringly indicated direction and precise location. The profound ability to steadfastly maintain their intended course during the perilous hours of night travel, amidst obscuring mists, or when traversing wholly unfamiliar territories, frequently demarcated the crucial boundary between a successful, timely delivery and potentially perilous, costly delays. These indispensable competencies were not acquired through formal instruction, but rather developed organically and gradually through years of meticulous observation and an acute, intuitive attention to natural signs, a profound skill set that ancient peoples cultivated out of sheer existential necessity. The pivotal role of dependable information exchange within the ancient economy unequivocally ensured that professional messengers enjoyed not only consistent employment, but also a considerable degree of societal respect. Notwithstanding the formidable physical hardships inherent in their demanding occupation, their services were universally sought. Merchants critically depended upon them for up-to-the-minute intelligence regarding market conditions and prices in distant emporiums. City governments placed immense reliance upon them for all diplomatic and administrative communications, from treaty negotiations to the promulgation of decrees, and countless individuals entrusted them with delicate personal messages vital for sustaining familial bonds and crucial social relationships across the considerable distances separating Greek communities. This profound and widespread dependence naturally conferred a robust sense of job security, yet simultaneously imposed a weighty burden of responsibility, given that any lapses or failures in communication could precipitate profoundly serious and far-reaching consequences for all parties involved. As Philippos, weary yet resolute, at last arrived at the midpoint of his arduous trek to Corinth, he paused to seek respite at a familiar and welcoming inn, a habitual sanctuary along his well-trodden path. It was during these moments of quiet contemplation that his thoughts invariably turned to the profound and indispensable role his demanding profession played in diligently maintaining the intricate network of connections that inextricably bound the diverse facets of Greek civilization into a coherent whole. Each individual message entrusted to his care, he mused, undeniably constituted a vital thread within the elaborately woven and complex web of relationships, encompassing political alliances, burgeoning commercial ventures, and deeply personal affections, a grand tapestry that permitted widely scattered and autonomous communities to effectively function as a unified, coherent Hellenic culture. With the dawn of the morrow, he anticipates the culmination of this particular delivery, whereupon he shall promptly embark upon the return journey to Athens. This homeward voyage will be laden with an entirely new consignment of dispatches, destined to perpetuate the ceaseless and vital circulation of information that tirelessly sustains the intricate connectivity of the ancient world, ensuring its vibrant pulse continues uninterrupted. One might reasonably ponder what other unsung individuals, with their unwavering patience and dedication, diligently upheld the foundational framework that enabled ancient Greek civilization to not only survive, but indeed flourish across its geographically expansive domains. While tireless messengers like Philippos valiantly traversed immense physical distances, acting as the arteries for the flow of immediate communications, a distinct cadre of meticulous artisans, the scribes of ancient Greece, undertook the equally crucial, albeit different task, of preserving the very essence of words across immeasurable spans of time, ensuring their enduring legacy for future generations. Within a confined, unlit scriptorium nestled deep beneath the bustling Athenian agora, Lysander meticulously dipped his finely honed reed pen into a carefully concocted reservoir of rich, dark ink. With unwavering focus, he resumed the painstaking task of transcribing the intricate legal code, a foundational document destined to govern the civic life of his beloved city for countless generations yet unborn. Every single letter demanded perfect formation, each individual word required impeccable spelling, and every line necessitated precise spacing. Indeed, even a seemingly minor oversight within such crucial legal documents possessed the perilous potential to subtly alter fundamental meanings, inadvertently introduce problematic loopholes, or utterly invalidate significant provisions, thereby undermining justice. This exacting work, therefore, demanded an absolute and unyielding concentration, an almost infinite reservoir of patience, and a profound, almost sacred reverence for the written word. A level of appreciation that regrettably few individuals within their predominantly oral culture could truly fathom or fully comprehend. The very codification of legal statutes in written form undeniably stands as one of humanity's most monumental and enduring triumphs, though its profound significance is often overlooked in contemporary life, having become so intrinsically fundamental to our societal structures. Prior to the advent of widespread literacy and the practice of inscription, laws existed solely within the confines of human memory, meticulously passed down through successive generations of esteemed judges and revered elders who diligently upheld the sanctity of oral traditions. However, the inherent fallibility of human recollection, coupled with the natural evolution of societal norms, meant that interpretations could subtly shift over the passage of time, inevitably giving rise to contentious disputes regarding the precise stipulations of the law. In stark contrast, meticulously crafted written law codes furnished an unparalleled bedrock of stability, ensured unwavering consistency in application, and crucially provided the invaluable capacity to consult the exact, immutable wordings whenever perplexing questions or legal ambiguities inevitably arose. In the meticulous realm of ancient Athens, the crucial responsibility of ensuring exact wordings when intricate legal questions arose fell upon master scribes, whose unwavering precision safeguarded the very fabric of civic life. Lysander, a dedicated practitioner of this venerable craft, assimilated his expertise through a time-honored apprenticeship, devoting numerous years to serving under seasoned master scribes. These mentors imparted not merely the intricate technical proficiencies of writing, but also instilled in him the profound ethical obligations inherent in the enduring preservation of pivotal documents. His rigorous instruction commenced with the painstaking preparation of writing implements and surfaces, the exacting calibration of reed pens to achieve optimal point and pliancy, the sophisticated alchemy of blending inks formulated for centuries of unwavering legibility, and the meticulous conditioning of parchment and papyrus to ensure pristine ink adhesion and lasting structural integrity. The physical exactions of scribal work, while distinct from those encountered by couriers or artisans, are nonetheless profoundly rigorous. Prolonged periods of stooping over writing surfaces invariably precipitate chronic ailments of the back and neck. The intricate detailing, particularly when performed under the flickering glow of oil lamps or candles, imposes considerable strain upon the eyes. Furthermore, the ceaseless, repetitive motions of transcription can induce persistent discomfort in the hands and arms. Yet, arguably, the most formidable challenge lies in the mental demand for unflagging concentration. A momentary lapse in vigilance can introduce grievous errors, necessitating the arduous re-execution of entire textual sections. The extensive array of legal documents meticulously copied by Lysander encompasses virtually every facet of Athenian civic existence. This includes commercial statutes governing contractual agreements, trade protocols, and the intricacies of property ownership, criminal codes delineating specific offenses and their corresponding punitive measures, foundational constitutional provisions establishing governmental frameworks and the fundamental rights of citizens, and administrative regulations dictating everything from the operation of public markets to the solemnities of religious festivals. Each distinct category of document mandates specific presentational standards, varying degrees of granular detail, and unique methodologies for logical organization and precise cross-referencing. Lysander's profound comprehension of the content he transcribes significantly enhances his efficacy as a scribe, empowering him to discern potential inaccuracies that might have permeated source documents and to ensure unwavering consistency in specialized legal terminology. He has cultivated an expansive mastery of Athenian law, not through conventional jurisprudential education, but through the painstaking, iterative process of copying thousands of legal provisions, meticulously observing the intricate interrelationships between disparate statutes, and discerning how fundamental legal principles are applied across a myriad of practical circumstances. The materials designated for legal documentation must conform to the most exacting benchmarks of resilience and permanence. Papyrus, ingeniously fashioned from Egyptian reeds, furnishes an excellent writing surface, but exhibits a comparatively swift deterioration in humid climatic conditions. Parchment, meticulously prepared from specially treated animal skins, commands a higher cost, yet offers substantially greater longevity and superior resistance to damage from frequent handling. For records of paramount importance, scribes invariably select the finest available parchment, processed according to time-honored techniques designed to maximize its endurance against fading, cracking, or other forms of degradation. Inks, too, present their own complex challenges, as improperly formulated compositions can, over time, fade into obscurity, bleed uncontrollably, or even corrode the very writing surfaces they are meant to adorn. The most superior inks for enduring documents are meticulously prepared from precise mixtures of carbon black and sophisticated binding agents, engineered to permeate deeply into the writing substratum rather than merely resting superficially upon it. These specialized inks necessitate regular, fresh preparation, as prolonged storage renders them viscous and difficult to manipulate. Indeed, the artful preparation of high-quality ink is itself an intricate discipline, demanding a nuanced understanding of chemical principles, material science, and the specific demands of diverse document types. The actual writing process adheres to established protocols meticulously designed to minimize errors and ensure absolute consistency. Initially, Lysander undertakes a painstaking review of the source document, diligently identifying any potential ambiguities or unclear passages that require elucidation before the transcription process commences. Subsequently, he meticulously plans the architectural layout of the new document, precisely calculating the spatial requirements for each section, determining the optimal placement of page breaks, and orchestrating the textual arrangement to maximize both readability and practical legal utility. The actual transcription unfolds in deliberate stages, incorporating integrated opportunities for the detection and rectification of errors. The initial phase involves the production of a preliminary draft, where the paramount objective is the accurate capture of all content, with less emphasis placed on impeccable formatting. This provisional draft then undergoes rigorous proofreading, meticulously compared word by word against the original source document, and corrected as needed. Only upon the successful completion of this exhaustive review does the meticulous work on the final version commence, a document that must embody the most stringent standards of legibility, structural elegance, and physical presentation. Legal documents demand specialized attention to formatting and organizational principles that render them genuinely useful for practical reference. Interrelated provisions must be logically grouped under clear headings and subheadings, enabling users to swiftly locate specific information. Cross-references between different sections must be unimpeachably accurate and genuinely helpful. Crucial definitions and foundational legal principles need to be prominently highlighted or strategically positioned for immediate accessibility. All these requirements transcend mere transcription capabilities, demanding astute editorial discernment and a profound understanding of the document's ultimate practical application. The secure storage and enduring preservation of completed legal documents present a continuous series of challenges that extend far beyond the initial act of copying. These invaluable records must be diligently protected from the destructive forces of moisture, the insidious damage inflicted by insects and rodents, the catastrophic threat of fire, and the pervasive hazard of human carelessness. They necessitate systematic organization that permits the rapid retrieval of specific items when required. Furthermore, they demand periodic inspection and meticulous maintenance to identify any signs of deterioration before they escalate into serious damage. Most critically, they require cyclical retranscription to generate pristine new versions before the originals become too compromised to decipher. The profound societal importance of unimpeachable legal records means that scribes like Lysander occupy positions of considerable public trust and grave responsibility. Citizens, merchants, and government officials alike depend implicitly on these legal documents for the safeguarding of their rights, the equitable resolution of disputes, and authoritative guidance in complex situations. Errors introduced during legal copying can have extraordinarily severe consequences, potentially invalidating crucial contracts, creating unjust advantages for certain parties, or rendering it utterly impossible to ascertain the precise legal requirements in specific circumstances. The meticulously designed working environment of legal scribes powerfully reflects the paramount importance of their occupation. Lysander's dedicated copying chamber, for instance, is engineered to furnish optimal conditions for intricate detailed work, ample illumination, a consistently comfortable ambient temperature, and effective insulation from distracting noise and interruptions. The furnishings are strategically arranged to support correct posture and significantly reduce physical strain. Writing surfaces are precisely positioned at the ideal height and angle. Efficient storage systems ensure that all materials remain impeccably organized and readily accessible. Every element is thoughtfully configured to foster maximum accuracy, efficiency, and the enduring preservation of invaluable documents. Collaboration among scribes proves absolutely essential for undertaking extensive projects, such as comprehensive legal codes or expansive administrative records. Different scribes might simultaneously work on distinct sections, necessitating meticulous coordination to ensure absolute consistency in formatting, specialized terminology, and intertextual cross-references. Regular meetings serve as vital forums for scribes to collectively discuss emerging problems, share effective solutions, and collectively uphold the exacting standards that legal documents demand. This collaborative methodology also inherently provides crucial checks against individual errors, as multiple expert eyes review each document before it is deemed complete and authoritative. The intellectual challenges inherent in legal copying extend far beyond mere textual reproduction to encompass sophisticated interpretation logical organization, and discerning editorial judgment. Legal language frequently incorporates highly technical terms, intricate sentence structures, and complex allusions to other documents or established legal principles. Scribes must possess a sufficiently profound understanding of these complexities to recognize when something appears logically inconsistent, when cross-references are erroneous, or when particular formatting choices might inadvertently create confusion for future users of the documents. The rigorous training of new scribes involves not merely imparting technical proficiencies, but critically instilling the precise attitudes and diligent work habits that legal transcription inexorably demands. Qualities such as unwavering attention to detail, enduring patience for repetitive tasks, an unyielding pride in absolute accuracy, and a profound understanding of the broader societal importance of their work must all be meticulously cultivated through extensive practical experience and expert mentoring. Master scribes like Lysander embrace this instructional mandate with profound gravity, fully cognizant that the integrity and reliability of future legal records hinge directly on the caliber of their successors' preparation. The economic dimensions of scribal work powerfully underscore the high societal value placed upon impeccably accurate legal records. Professional scribes command not only substantial remuneration, but also enjoy consistent occupational engagement and significant social respect. The specialized materials they utilize, premium quality parchment, indelible inks, bespoke tools, represent considerable investments that communities willingly undertake, driven by the critical importance of possessing reliable and enduring legal documentation. This robust economic endorsement empowers scribes to prioritize exemplary quality over mere expediency, thereby producing documents destined to serve their communities for countless generations. As the evening light begins to fade, and Lysander meticulously completes yet another section of the extensive legal code he has been painstakingly transcribing, he experiences a profound, quiet satisfaction. This contentment stems from contributing to an endeavor that serves something far grander than immediate personal needs. The precise words he has diligently preserved today will undoubtedly guide future legal decisions, steadfastly protect the fundamental rights of citizens, and consistently maintain social order long after his own name has faded from collective memory. His scrupulous attention to detail, his unyielding commitment to absolute accuracy, and his acute awareness of the overarching significance of written law all collectively fortify the very bedrock of a civilized society. Tomorrow, with renewed purpose, he will commence another section, continuing the ceaseless yet utterly indispensable work of perpetuating human knowledge in its most permanent and authoritative form. Beyond the written records that enshrined human knowledge in enduring forms, other dedicated custodians of practical wisdom were instrumental in upholding the fundamental intellectual frameworks of ancient Greek civilization. Much like scribes, such as the esteemed Lysander, diligently safeguarded the intricate legal codes that structured ancient Greek society, the skilled salt gatherers inhabiting the shores of the Aegean Sea played an equally vital role by meticulously preserving the sustenance that nourished its populace. Their craft, though seemingly mundane, was a cornerstone of societal stability and cultural continuity, a silent but powerful force in the maintenance of an organized way of life. Theodorus deliberately steps into the tranquil, shallow lagoons that fringe the picturesque coastline near Marathon, experiencing the gentle embrace of the sun-warmed brine as it playfully splashes against his bare legs. This ritual marks the commencement of yet another arduous day dedicated to extracting one of antiquity's most genuinely invaluable commodities. While contemporary individuals might perceive salt as a ubiquitous and rather ordinary substance, devoid of particular distinction, within the context of the ancient world, its worth was quite literally commensurate with its weight in silver. It proved indispensable not only for the vital task of food preservation, but also for the meticulous curing of leather, the preparation of hides for various uses, and a myriad of other intricate processes, all of which collectively underpinned the very possibility of a sophisticated and organized civilized existence. The intricate methodology involved in extracting salt from the vast expanse of seawater demands an exceptional degree of patience, precise timing, and an inherent, almost instinctive understanding of localized environmental conditions. An expertise that typically necessitates many years of dedicated observation and practical application to cultivate. Theodorus, through diligent effort and inherited wisdom, has mastered the nuanced art of interpreting the delicate indicators that signal the optimal moment for commencing salt production. This involves discerning the perfect confluence of ambient temperature, atmospheric humidity, prevailing wind patterns, and rhythmic tidal cycles, which collectively forge the quintessential setting for natural evaporation to occur efficiently. Should an excessive amount of rainfall descend, the nascent brine will inevitably become diluted, compromising the delicate crystallization process. Conversely, an insufficient presence of sunlight will markedly impede the rate of evaporation. Furthermore, an overly vigorous wind could tragically disperse the invaluable crystalline formations before they can be meticulously gathered. The expansive salt flats where Theodorus meticulously toils are far from being mere natural geological features. Rather, they represent ingeniously engineered systems comprising a network of shallow ponds and interconnecting channels, painstakingly constructed and diligently upheld through the collective efforts of countless generations of salt gatherers. Each individual pond within this complex array is meticulously leveled with exacting precision, thereby guaranteeing a uniform water depth across its entire surface. Their bases are expertly lined with impermeable clay, a strategic design choice that effectively thwarts any undesirable seepage into the ground. While strategically placed wooden gates meticulously regulate the controlled flow of water between the various distinct sections of the system. The crucial channels, responsible for introducing fresh seawater into this elaborate setup, undergo regular and thorough cleansing to preempt any obstruction from accumulating sand, drifting seaweed, or various detritus that tempestuous storms might sweep in from the deeper marine environments. The tranquil hours of early morning invariably present the most opportune window for conducting thorough inspections of the salt ponds. At this time, when the atmospheric conditions remain pleasantly cool and the nocturnal evaporation has effectively concentrated the brine to its precise, optimal density, Theodorus deliberately traverses the shallow waters. He employs a lengthy wooden rake, systematically probing the floor of each pond in search of the unmistakable telltale crunch, the auditory signature of nascent salt crystals coalescing upon the clay substrate. This particular sound is singularly distinctive, utterly unlike the yielding squelch of soft mud or the abrasive scrape produced by shells and scattered stones. Upon identifying a pond that has reached its peak readiness for harvest, he promptly designates its precise location by firmly implanting a wooden stake, ensuring he can efficiently return armed with the appropriate specialized implements for collection. The act of harvesting salt transcends mere manual labor, elevating itself to a precise and nuanced art form. The delicate crystals necessitate collection at an absolutely critical juncture. If gathered prematurely, they remain diminutive and inextricably commingled with undesirable impurities, rendering them less valuable. Conversely, if the moment is missed and collection is delayed, they risk commencing their dissolution back into the surrounding brine, leading to significant loss. Theodorus skillfully wields a uniquely specialized implement, ingeniously designed as a hybrid of a rake and a scoop, featuring finely spaced wooden tines engineered to permit the efficient drainage of water while securely retaining the precious salt crystals. Every single scoop must be executed with meticulous care, specifically to circumvent any disturbance of the settled sediment resting on the pond's floor, as such agitation would inevitably mar the pristine white salt with contaminating mud and various detritus. The freshly harvested salt is carefully deposited into robust woven baskets, thoughtfully lined with a permeable cloth. This ingenious design facilitates the efficient drainage of any superfluous brine while securely containing the valuable crystalline formations. Subsequently, these laden baskets are strategically positioned upon elevated wooden platforms, effectively suspending them above the water level. This arrangement harnesses the omnipresent force of gravity, allowing it to perform the bulk of the arduous work involved in the natural separation of the liquid from the solid components. This crucial process cannot, under any circumstances, be expedited. Any attempt to forcibly squeeze or press the salt in an effort to accelerate water removal would inevitably lead to the crushing of the delicate crystals, thereby significantly diminishing the overall quality and integrity of the final product. Instead of forceful methods, Theodorus meticulously arranges the baskets in a thoughtfully devised pattern, specifically engineered to optimize both air circulation and efficient drainage. This deliberate approach is fundamental to the subsequent drying phase, ensuring uniform and gentle desiccation. Rigorous quality control remains an absolutely indispensable element throughout the entire salt production cycle, primarily because various grades of salt are destined for distinct applications and, consequently, command significantly disparate market prices, reflecting their purity and intended use. The most exquisite, pristine white crystals, utterly devoid of any hint of discoloration or extraneous foreign matter, are meticulously set aside and exclusively designated for the critical tasks of food preservation and culinary seasoning. These superior-grade crystals are destined for sale to affluent households, discerning professional chefs, and astute merchants engaged in the lucrative trade of luxury commodities and high-end provisions. Conversely, the lower grades, which may permissibly contain a slight presence of fine sand or incidental organic material, prove entirely adequate and fit for purpose in processes such as curing leather, imparting color to textiles through dyeing, or a multitude of other industrial applications where the absolute purity of the product is considered less paramount than the sheer volume available. The intricate enterprise of salt gathering necessitates a profound and meticulous consideration of prevailing market conditions, alongside the cultivation of robust customer relationships that extend far beyond the tangible physical labor of harvesting the commodity itself. Theodorus assiduously cultivates and sustains vital connections with merchants responsible for conveying salt to distant inland cities, with dedicated food preservers who depend upon a consistent and dependable supply for their commercial operations, and with prosperous households that particularly appreciate the unwavering quality of his meticulously produced product. These indispensable relationships are painstakingly forged over many years, founded upon a bedrock of reliable delivery, unimpeachable honest dealings, and an unblemished reputation for consistently yielding salt that precisely fulfills the unique and specific requirements of each individual client. Inclement weather patterns present an incessant barrage of challenges, demanding both adaptive flexibility and astute long-term strategic planning from the salt gatherer. A protracted week of torrential rainfall, for instance, possesses the devastating potential to entirely compromise an entire batch of developing salt, compelling the gatherer to completely drain the ponds and recommence the laborious process anew with fresh seawater. Furthermore, severe storms can inflict considerable damage upon the meticulously maintained pond infrastructures, necessitating immediate and comprehensive repairs to avert the catastrophic loss of concentrated brine, which embodies many weeks of diligent and patient labor. Prolonged stretches of overcast weather significantly impede the crucial process of evaporation, resulting in a considerable backlog of partially developed salt that demands extremely careful oversight to prevent its spoilage and degradation. The inherent seasonal rhythms governing salt production dictate that the substantial majority of the year's yield must be meticulously completed during the arid summer months, a period characterized by peak evaporation rates and negligible rainfall. This cyclical pattern engenders intense periods of fervent activity, subsequently succeeded by more tranquil months, during which the focus shifts decisively towards essential maintenance, necessary repairs, and comprehensive preparation for the forthcoming season. Throughout the colder winter period, Theodorus dedicates his efforts to repairing and incrementally enhancing his intricate pond systems, engaging in crucial negotiations for future contracts with his clientele, and diligently processing the accumulated salt from the preceding summer harvests into its various distinct grades and appropriate packaging for distribution. The specialized implements and equipment indispensable for the undertaking of salt gathering constitute unique items that demand an equivalent degree of meticulous care and diligent maintenance as that bestowed upon the salt ponds themselves. Wooden tools, for instance, undergo regular treatment with specific oils, a practice designed to effectively prevent decay without introducing any contaminant that could compromise the purity of the salt. Metallic components are assiduously preserved free from corrosive rust, which would otherwise impart an undesirable discoloration to the ultimate product. While the collection baskets are either diligently repaired or entirely replaced well before any wear and tear might manifest as holes, allowing the precious salt to escape. Even the cloth linings, seemingly minor elements, require careful selection and rigorous upkeep. Distinct weaves are chosen for their specific properties as they yield varying drainage rates, and it is crucial to understand that certain dyes or chemical treatments, though seemingly innocuous, possess the potential to subtly alter both the flavor and the visual appeal of the finished salt. The comprehensive body of knowledge requisite for consistently successful salt production encompasses an intricate understanding of fundamental chemistry, predictive meteorology, and sophisticated engineering principles. a combination that genuinely rivals the intellectual demands of any other ancient craft. Salt gatherers must possess an inherent grasp of how various dissolved minerals precipitate into crystalline forms at differing concentrations, how ambient atmospheric pressure directly influences the efficiency of evaporation rates, and crucially, how to meticulously design and assiduously maintain complex hydraulic systems that precisely govern the flow of water across a multiplicity of interconnected ponds. This invaluable expertise is customarily transmitted through generational family lineages or robust apprenticeship systems, ensuring the enduring preservation of both practical, hands-on techniques and profound theoretical understanding. The economic dimensions of the pervasive salt trade vividly underscore the utterly indispensable nature of this commodity within the fabric of ancient society. The arduous undertaking of salt gathering yields a reliably steady income stream throughout the productive season, frequently presenting lucrative opportunities for commanding premium prices whenever supply is constrained by adverse weather conditions or other unforeseen mitigating factors. While the initial establishment of pond infrastructure and the acquisition of specialized equipment necessitate a considerable upfront capital investment, these substantial costs are typically amortized and recouped over many subsequent years of sustained production. Crucially, the fundamental demand for salt remains unceasing and remarkably predictable. Its universal necessity, coupled with the absence of any truly effective substitutes for the vast majority of its applications, firmly entrenches its economic preeminence. A healthy spirit of competition among salt gatherers actively fosters both innovation and continuous quality improvement. Yet this dynamic coexists with the preservation of essential cooperative relationships, which are vital for the collective sharing of invaluable knowledge and scarce resources. While neighboring gatherers may indeed vie intensely for the most esteemed clientele and the most advantageous pricing, they concurrently engage in a reciprocal exchange of critical information concerning impending weather patterns, fluctuating market conditions, and advancements in technical methodologies, insights that ultimately accrue to the benefit of every participant within the industry. Moreover, during exigent circumstances, such as the aftermath of devastating storms or unforeseen equipment malfunctions, these erstwhile competitors seamlessly transform into indispensable collaborators, readily loaning specialized tools, offering shared workspace, or even furnishing temporary labor to mutually assist one another in sustaining production. The societal standing accorded to salt gatherers intrinsically mirrors the profound importance of their indispensable product, while simultaneously recognizing the rigorous physical demands and inherent economic uncertainties that characterize their demanding vocation. They are widely esteemed as accomplished craftsmen, individuals who furnish critically essential services to the community. However, despite their vital role, they do not typically accumulate substantial wealth, nor exert significant influence within broader political or cultural spheres. Their primary social affiliations are predominantly forged with other individuals deeply involved in the intricate processes of food production and preservation. Diligent farmers, skilled bakers, astute merchants, and prudent householders, all of whom possess a profound understanding of the practical imperative of securing consistent and reliable access to superior quality salt. As the afternoon draws near and the sun ascends to its zenith, casting its most intense rays, Theodorus concludes his diligent morning inspections and embarks upon the painstaking task of conveying the freshly harvested salt to designated storage facilities. Here, The crystals will undergo further desiccation before their eventual packaging and preparation for market. The warm, pristine crystals shimmer and gleam, catching the brilliant sunlight like a scattering of innumerable tiny diamonds, each individual facet embodying countless hours of patient labor and meticulous adherence to natural processes. Cycles that have unfolded in precisely the same manner for uncounted generations. His unwavering, methodical dedication to this venerable craft not only actively contributes to the preservation of the vital foodstuffs that nourish his community, but also steadfastly upholds time-honored traditions, forging an unbreakable link between him and the myriad generations of salt gatherers who have diligently worked these very same coastal waters throughout history. What other essential crafts helped ancient Greeks transform natural resources into the materials that made civilized life possible, thus laying the very foundations for their burgeoning society? While salt gatherers, such as the diligent Theodoras, meticulously orchestrated their demanding labor in harmony with the ceaseless, invigorating pulse of the sea and shoreline, contributing significantly to the foundational needs of ancient Greek society. The dedicated shepherds of Arcadia, by contrast, organized their existence according to the more deliberate, profound cadences of the rugged mountains and verdant pastures. Aristomos, a seasoned shepherd, expertly directs his charges, a robust flock of sheep, along venerable pathways that intricately meander through venerable oak groves and expansive meadows, resplendent with a vibrant tapestry of wildflowers. These very routes represent a living testament to antiquity, having been traversed by innumerable shepherd generations preceding him, each leaving an indelible mark on the landscape and its traditional uses. The majestic mountains of Arcadia ascend gracefully, presenting a panorama of soft, undulating contours that seem to ripple towards the heavens, their fertile slopes generously blanketed with a diverse array of nourishing grasses and aromatic herbs, renowned throughout the Hellenic world for yielding dairy products of unparalleled sweetness and fleece of the most exquisite quality, highly prized for its luxurious softness and durability. The demanding occupation of shepherding within these formidable mountainous regions necessitates an exceptionally profound and deeply ingrained comprehension of the terrain, extending far beyond a mere awareness of where forage is abundant. Aristomos, through decades of accumulated wisdom and keen observation, possesses an almost uncanny ability to decipher climatic shifts by scrutinizing the distinctive formations of clouds encircling specific peaks. He can accurately forecast the accessibility of vital water sources by discerning subtle variations in the coloration of vegetation within remote valleys, and he unerringly pinpoints secure havens that will afford robust protection to his cherished flock against the sudden fury of tempestuous weather or the lurking menace of predatory animals. This invaluable repository of ecological wisdom has been meticulously transmitted through his lineage for countless generations, consistently honed and enriched by empirical experience and rigorous observation, thereby evolving into an exhaustive mastery of collaborating harmoniously with inherent natural systems, rather than engaging in futile opposition to their immutable forces. The sheep under Aristomos's care are distinctly different from the pampered, often placid and plump breeds typically encountered on contemporary agricultural estates. These are, in fact, remarkably resilient and exceptionally sagacious animals, meticulously honed by centuries of natural selection to thrive amidst the harsh exigencies of mountain existence. They have assimilated, with remarkable aptitude, Aristomos's precise cues and directives, a specific piercing whistle that unequivocally signifies an instruction to ascend the slope, a deliberate hand gesture, often subtle, which clearly communicates the command to maintain cohesion as a group, and even a nuanced alteration in his gait, a subtle quickening or slowing, which serves as an immediate caution regarding impending peril or an emergent threat further along their trajectory. The intricate bond forged between this shepherd and his loyal flock is fundamentally anchored in a profound, reciprocal comprehension and an unwavering confidence, meticulously cultivated over numerous years of shared trials and triumphs within these demanding landscapes, where an enduring spirit of collaboration is not merely advantageous, but absolutely indispensable for their collective perpetuation. Every distinct season ushers in a unique array of both formidable obstacles and advantageous prospects, each demanding meticulous foresight, strategic orchestration, and highly adaptable countermeasures. The advent of spring, for instance, necessitates the arduous task of guiding the entire flock towards elevated pastures as the residual snow gradually recedes and tender new grasses begin their vibrant proliferation. Yet, this period concurrently entails the treacherous navigation of boggy, often treacherous trails, the perilous crossing of streams swollen by meltwater, and crucially, the demanding birthing season, during which ewes require an elevated degree of diligent care and vigilant safeguarding. Summer, while providing the most luxuriant and abundant grazing opportunities, simultaneously introduces the grave perils of protracted drought, oppressive thermal extremes, and the intensified activity of predatory creatures, which become more audacious and prevalent when their own food sources are plentiful. Finally, the approach of autumn mandates an assiduous preparation for the impending severity of winter, achieved by diligently enhancing the physical robustness and overall well-being of the flock, concurrently with a gradual migration towards more sheltered and lower-lying grazing grounds. The diurnal rhythms of shepherding adhere to an intricate choreography, characterized by both established predictability and an inherent, ceaseless variability. The nascent hours of dawn invariably commence with a thorough inspection of each individual animal, a painstaking examination for any discernible indications of ailment or physical harm, followed by a precise enumeration of the entire flock to ascertain that no member has strayed or become separated during the nocturnal hours. Simultaneously, a careful appraisal of prevailing atmospheric conditions is undertaken, forming the crucial basis for formulating the day's strategic migratory plan. Subsequently, the flock embarks upon a deliberate, unhurried progression across the expansive landscape, punctuated by regular intervals dedicated to grazing, quenching their thirst at natural springs or streams, and periods of essential repose. As the afternoon unfolds, bringing with it the most intense thermal peaks, the sheep instinctually seek refuge in the cool embrace of natural shade. During this relatively tranquil interlude, Aristomos judiciously allocates his time to practical duties, such as meticulously mending worn equipment, verifying the integrity and contents of various supply caches, or diligently reconnoitering potential routes for the subsequent day's expedition. The intricate art of traversing rugged mountain terrain demands a highly specialized repertoire of proficiencies, seamlessly integrating empirical practical knowledge with an innate, almost subconscious grasp of animal instincts and the complex dynamics of natural ecosystems. Aristomos possesses the extraordinary faculty of interpreting the intricate contours and subtle nuances of the landscape, as if it were an elaborately detailed cartographic representation. He meticulously registers prominent geological features, discerns the cyclical metamorphoses brought about by seasonal transitions, and identifies the most delicate, often imperceptible indicators that reveal the optimal pathways suited for a myriad of prevailing circumstances. His comprehensive understanding encompasses an awareness of which specific trails are rendered utterly impassable following torrential downpours, which particular sectors are inherently susceptible to perilous rockslides, and precisely which verdant meadows consistently offer the most nourishing pasturage during varying periods throughout the annual cycle. This sophisticated internal cartography is not static, but is perpetually refined and recalibrated, incorporating fresh observations and adapting to the ever-shifting conditions of the mountainous environment. The essential accoutrements employed in the arduous practice of mountain shepherding are meticulously chosen, prioritizing their inherent robustness, multifaceted utility, and ease of transport. Aristomos invariably carries a sturdy staff, a venerable implement that serves a multitude of critical functions. It acts as an indispensable aid for navigating challenging footpaths, a precise instrument for gently directing the movement of his flock, a formidable defensive weapon for safeguarding against aggressive predators, and even a practical measuring apparatus for accurately gauging the profundity of rushing streams or accumulated snowdrifts. His protective cloak, expertly crafted from resilient wool, offers invaluable insulation, retaining warmth even when saturated, and provides crucial shielding from the biting winds and the relentless glare of the sun. Furthermore, his selection of water receptacles, provisions of sustenance, and various repair components is predicated upon an exacting assessment of their weight-to-utility efficiency and their proven capacity to endure rigorous treatment and adverse circumstances inherent in demanding environments. The critical task of predator management necessitates an unceasing state of heightened vigilance and the deployment of a diverse repertoire of sophisticated tactics, meticulously calibrated to achieve a delicate equilibrium between the imperative safeguarding of the flock and an inherent reverence for the intricate balance of the natural ecosystem. Formidable apex predators such as wolves, formidable bears, and elusive large felines all present significant potential dangers to the livestock. Yet even smaller, more ubiquitous carnivores, like cunning foxes, can pose a serious threat, often targeting vulnerable young lambs or infirm animals. Aristomos strategically employs highly specialized guard dogs, rigorously trained for the unique demands of mountain operations. But he also judiciously utilizes a panoply of other preventative measures. These include the astute, strategic placement of his flock within naturally defensible positions, the careful, calculated timing of their transit through inherently vulnerable zones, and the ingenious construction of ephemeral impediments, fashioned from readily available natural elements or easily transportable materials to deter potential incursions. The intricate social dimensions inherent in the shepherding profession extend the crucial maintenance of robust interconnections with fellow herders, the various local communities nestled within the valleys, and the extensive overarching network of individuals engaged in the multifaceted industries of wool and dairy production. Through informal yet highly effective conduits that traverse the entire expansive region, shepherds actively disseminate vital intelligence concerning optimal grazing conditions, impending atmospheric phenomena, observable predator movements, and fluctuating market valuations. They meticulously coordinate their migratory patterns to preclude the detrimental effects of overgrazing in specific locales and offer reciprocal assistance and steadfast support during unforeseen exigencies or particularly arduous circumstances. These enduring professional and personal bonds are assiduously cultivated and reinforced through customary assemblies at time-honored rendezvous points, spirited participation in seasonal festivities, and the profound, open-hearted hospitality that shepherds characteristically extend to weary travelers venturing into the secluded, often isolated, mountain reaches. The sophisticated practice of breeding management demands an exceptional degree of protracted strategic foresight and meticulous, comprehensive record-keeping, all designed to guarantee the sustained vitality and prolificacy of the flock across numerous successive generations. Aristomos assiduously traces intricate bloodlines, diligently scrutinizes the efficacy of breeding outcomes, and renders pivotal determinations regarding which individual animals are to be retained within the core flock, which are destined for sale, and which are to be exchanged with other experienced herders to judiciously introduce novel genetic diversity. These critical choices are predicated upon a rigorous evaluation of various intrinsic attributes, including the superior quality of their wool, their capacity for robust milk yield, their inherent resilience to prevailing diseases, and their proven capacity for adaptation to the often challenging mountain conditions, traits which frequently do not manifest their full potential until the animals have attained their physiological maturity. Recurring seasonal festivities and profound religious observances afford invaluable occasions for shepherds to convene, to engage in the vital exchange of practical information, and to steadfastly uphold cherished cultural traditions that profoundly tether them to their venerable historical roots and their deeply embedded spiritual patrimony. The veneration of Pan, the revered goat-footed deity of pastoralists and untamed wilderness, encompasses ancient rituals that overtly recognize the inherent reliance of human societies upon the intricate workings of natural systems, alongside the profound custodianship that accompanies the tending of domesticated animals within wild, untamed surroundings. These significant observances serve to powerfully underscore the ethical imperatives intrinsic to the shepherding vocation and furnish essential spiritual sustenance, enabling them to contend with the often profound solitude and the inherent rigors of life in the high mountains. The multifaceted economic dimensions intrinsic to the practice of shepherding encompass a plurality of distinct revenue streams, each demanding a specialized acumen and a keen awareness of fluctuating market dynamics. The profitability of wool sales, for instance, is contingent upon the superior quality of the fleece, the judicious timing of its presentation to market, and the cultivation of strong, reliable relationships with processors who undertake the intricate transformation of raw fleece into refined, marketable commodities. The production and sale of dairy products, such as artisanal cheese and fresh milk, necessitate a comprehensive understanding of effective food preservation techniques, efficient transportation, logistics, and the nuanced preferences of discerning consumers. The trade in live animals, conversely, involves a meticulous appraisal of breeding stock, the inherent quality of the meat, and the prevailing market demand, which itself exhibits considerable seasonal and regional variability. Consequently, truly successful shepherds must possess an exhaustive comprehension of all these diverse market segments and meticulously tailor their management strategies to align with these intricate economic realities. The capacity for vigilant weather surveillance and adept responsive action constitutes an absolutely indispensable skill set, frequently delineating the critical distinction between economic prosperity and catastrophic failure. Within the challenging domain of mountain shepherding, Aristomos has assiduously cultivated the ability to decipher the most subtle, often overlooked indicators that presage impending shifts in atmospheric conditions. These include the nuanced comportment of wild fauna, the distinctive morphology of particular cloud formations, and the precise trajectory and force of winds that bear moisture-laden air from distant maritime expanses. This profound meteorological insight empowers him to strategically relocate his flock to secure locations well in advance of approaching tempestuous weather, to locate and utilize protective havens during periods of severe climatic adversity, and to shrewdly capitalize on auspicious environmental conditions for critical activities such as the annual shearing or the crucial breeding season. The comprehensive tutelage of nascent shepherds encompasses not merely the transmission of requisite technical proficiencies, but, more profoundly, the meticulous inculcation of the specific dispositions and robust character attributes that are inherently demanded by the rigors of mountain existence. Virtues such as unwavering patience, resolute self-sufficiency, meticulous observational acuity, and a profound reverence for the intricate equilibrium of natural systems must all be painstakingly cultivated through immersive experiential learning and dedicated mentorship. Concurrently, an exemplary state of physical conditioning, an unyielding mental fortitude, and the critical capacity to render sound judgments amidst intense pressure are deemed of equivalent importance. Esteemed master shepherds, of the caliber of Aristomos, embrace this profound pedagogical responsibility with utmost gravity, acutely aware that the venerable traditions and accumulated wisdom they impart will ultimately dictate the enduring prosperity and viability of successive generations of pastoralists. The judicious conservation and enduring sustainable utilization of invaluable mountain pastures necessitate a deeply ingrained comprehension of ecological tenets, a profound wisdom that contemporary environmental advocates are, in many respects, only now commencing to fully grasp and value. Through countless centuries of practical application and empirical observation, shepherds have assiduously acquired an unparalleled mastery in regulating grazing intensity, mitigating the detrimental effects of soil erosion, preserving and fostering the rich biodiversity of plant life, and working in harmonious concert with natural successional processes to ensure the sustained fertility and yield of these vital pasturages across innumerable generations. Their time-honored methodologies encompass carefully managed controlled burning, the strategic and precise timing of grazing rotations, and the conscientious safeguarding of delicate ecological zones during particularly susceptible periods, such as prolonged droughts or episodes of severe climatic upheaval. Such arduous conditions can manifest as prolonged periods of aridity, leading to drought, or through the sudden onslaught of severe meteorological phenomena, commonly referred to as extreme weather events. The deeper existential aspects of shepherding encompass a profound intellectual engagement with humanity's intrinsic connection to the natural world, a comprehensive exploration of the profound significance of responsible guardianship, and a critical examination of the ethical principles that ought to inform human engagement with all sentient creatures. The tranquil isolation and breathtaking grandeur of these elevated mountain landscapes offer a unique crucible for introspection, a luxury seldom afforded within the clamor of densely populated regions. Consequently, numerous pastoralists cultivate an acute reverence for the intricate design and symbiotic reliance inherent in ecological frameworks, concurrently fostering a profound sense of modesty regarding humankind's position within the vast, interwoven tapestry of existence. With the advent of dusk, Aristomos meticulously maneuvers his charges toward a secluded pasturage designated for their nocturnal repose. He experiences a profound contentment, the fruit of yet another day dedicated to diligent guardianship within the embrace of an ecosystem simultaneously breathtakingly splendid and rigorously demanding. The ovine companions instinctively adopt their customary evening rituals, engaging in leisurely foraging, interflock interaction, and a progressive descent into somnolence. Concurrently, their vigilant protector establishes his rudimentary bivouac, bracing himself for a nocturnal vigil beneath a celestial canopy, where constellations shimmer with unparalleled luminosity in the crisp, rarefied atmosphere of the peaks. His assiduous and expert husbandry of these creatures serves as a vital pillar, sustaining the human habitations nestled within the verdant valleys beneath, while simultaneously perpetuating venerable customs. This enduring practice thereby forges an unbroken lineage to countless generations of pastoralists who discovered profound significance and intrinsic value in this arduous, yet deeply gratifying vocation. The soft murmurs of the settling flock, the evocative calls of nocturnal avifauna from afar, and the whispers of the breeze through the arboreal canopy coalesce into a timeless serenade, one that has resonated through these ancient highlands for millennia, imbuing the atmosphere with a pervasive tranquility and the immutable cadences born of an existence intrinsically synchronized with the grand orchestration of the natural realm. The singular entity denoted by RLD, she represents an enigmatic point of reference, a succinct and almost cryptic designation within the broader discourse. Its inherent conciseness suggests a distillation of information, perhaps a coded abbreviation or a highly specialized term whose full import remains veiled to the uninitiated observer. This particular combination of characters, precisely rendered as RLD and concluded with a definitive period, stands as a unique identifier, possessing an intrinsic structure that, while minimal, is undeniably present. One might infer its role as a fundamental building block or a critical nexus within an unspoken system, its very brevity hinting at a profound significance that transcends its superficial textual form. Thus, RLD, hiatus, functions as a linguistic placeholder, a singular marker awaiting further explication to unveil the complete scope of its intended meaning and influence within its native domain.